listening to 90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. The return of SMC Sports for the winter semester. We're on every Monday from 1 to 4. We are talking New York Jets and their collapse of yesterday. Would you even really?
I don't term it a collapse. You were in the playoffs for 1 week.
It frustrates me, and I'm a Dallas fan, and thank God their pathetic season is over. Oof. We get the 4th draft pick. Hooray! We'll be back next year.
Don't panic.
Exactly. But I always like to see the underdog win, and I've always liked to see the Jets win because to me they've always been that underdog, and they're so close. But just it was in their hands. And you know what? And I said this
collapse would have been Denver missing the playoffs outright in the AFC West. But I think in large part, as I was saying, to go back to my original point, the loss to the Bills on Thursday night at MetLife was a bad loss. They made so many mistakes. Clock management was an issue. Decisions when to go for it and when to kick field goals. Play calling was bad. So that was a bad loss. And also the loss to the Eagles in Week 3. They come home after beating Indianapolis. They're 2-0. They look very good coming home. The defense is clicking. The offense has it going. And that was a game where they got off to a sluggish start. They seemed to almost have a problem with the anticipation for that game. That was a sellout crowd. That place was rocking. It was a whiteout. And they made a ton of mistakes. That was the game where Marshall did the lateral that turned into a fumble, which was a run back for a touchdown. It was just such a bad, odd game. I'm not saying these are the two factors that ruin the Jets' season.
No, because again, it all goes back to
these are two games
yesterday.
that are the difference between 10-6 and 12-4. And frankly, the first Buffalo game is worse than yesterday. The first Bills game, they were at home.
No Jets fan will say that today.
Half.
They'll say that a couple months from now.
Yesterday was painful.
They will not say that today.
They never led the game.
That's also
They never led the game.
And we'll get into all the mistakes.
They hung around, but they didn't make a play.
And we'll get into all the mistakes when we come back from the first break. But, just going off on yesterday, I feel for every single Jets fan there is out there because, again, back in Week 15, all the Jets had to do was win out and they had a shot.
Yes.
So you go 10-6, or you go 11-5, 10-6, whatever. Then you got a shot. But somehow they got a miracle from Ryan Mallett in Baltimore last week, where now all they have to do is win, or Pittsburgh's got to lose, and the Jets are going to Houston, or somewhere to say possibly Cincinnati. They had a long shot for that.
I think they were going to Cincinnati.
They
were the
6. Yes, they were going to Cincinnati.
As long as the Chiefs won and Denver won, then
they needed
were
a miracle
6.
to go to Houston. But either way, I thought the Jets matched up well on both games.
Yeah.
And I heard it yesterday from Francesa, and I completely agree with it, despite his comment about Kansas City being beatable, because when you've won 10 in a row, I think you're anything but beatable.
Well, I don't know about that. I think Carolina's beatable at 15-1.
Agreed.
I think that your record says you're a great team, but it doesn't mean you can be had.
No, I agree, but my point is Carolina may be 15-1, but Kansas City is the hottest team in football right now.
They feel great, but the Chiefs have done this for years.
Right.
The Chiefs haven't won a playoff game since the 80s.
That's true.
Or, I'm sorry, since 93.
But anyway, that's the only point I disagreed with.
Yes.
But every other point I agreed with was the AFC is looking so weak. Or not so weak, but it hasn't been the AFC in years past to the point where the Jets had a better shot than just about anybody to go and win the AFC and go to the Super Bowl. Now, what happens when you get to the Super Bowl, the NFC looks tough this year. Arizona, Carolina, Seattle with the wild card. And Seattle's dangerous. They know how to play on the road, too. So they don't have a problem doing that.
Yeah.
But the Jets matched up well against, to me, everybody. New England they beat. Houston has problems with their quarterback. Kubiak in Denver is in a very big situation right now.
Very odd situation.
And he's got 2 weeks to make up his mind whether he's going to start Osweiler or Manning. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
And in Cincinnati, can you really trust A.J. McCarron to get you out of Pittsburgh?
Here's the thing with A.J. McCarron. There's a little bit of Alex Smith in there in that he's not going to lose the game for you. And he's smart with the ball. I think he's got 1 interception in the 4 starts he's made. And they're 3-1. I'm sorry, they're 2-2 with him. They lost in overtime to Denver, which I thought he played well in that game, actually. I watched most of that game from start to finish.
The way he lost, though, was just devastating.
Their offensive line folded in the second half. Gruden made a valid point during the broadcast that it seemed as almost the thin air at Mile High started to just wear the Bengals out physically. They just couldn't hang with the Broncos at that point because the game was turning into a track meet, defensively and offensively. They just seemed winded and just tired out. And that game, frankly, swung on the missed field goal before the half. Cincinnati misses the field goal. Denver has life. They come out charged up. Brock Osweiler finds it again. But I think McCarron is good in the absence of Andy Dalton. I think A.J. McCarron has a future as a pro, but I do agree with you. I think the Jets had a great chance, really, if they could have got the Houston matchup. I really would have loved that matchup for them. I know they lost to them the first time, but that was a very different Jet team.
Into the mat.
He's not playing anymore, so you won't have to worry about that.
I don't care. I just want to see
because
him
Hoyer
fall.
came back yesterday and played well. Houston's tricky. I don't think Hoyer is anything special, but he finds a way to win games somehow. It's
I gave Jacksonville a better shot yesterday than they deserved, didn't they? I mean, 30-6. I thought Jacksonville was going to win that game.
Frankly, I'm disappointed in Jacksonville because 4 weeks ago they were in the thick of this AFC South. They were 2 games out. They were a game out with 5 to play, and it's just gone backwards. I mean, it lost to New Orleans. I know New Orleans at home is very good, but it lost to New Orleans on the road. A bunch of bad performances by Jacksonville. Maybe they're not ready for the moment yet, but regardless of that, Houston did a very nice job yesterday getting the win. I thought the Jets would have been a good matchup for the Jets to play the Texans, especially since they're getting healthier. The offensive line is back on track, so they would have defended the pass rush better. But it's unfortunate, and I think in retrospect, this is going to be a very positive season for the Jets. Took a big step forward. I know there's questions about, is Fitzpatrick back next year? The only way I see Ryan Fitzpatrick not being the starting quarterback for this New York Jet football team come opening day of next season is if they bring in a guy of Drew Brees' caliber who might be available. Outside of that, I don't see.
To me, Fitzpatrick, I believe, has earned another year with the Jets. And again, we're going to get into everything that happened yesterday after the break. I feel like we needed this open to just get it all out of the air.
Get the Jets out there.
We'll get into the details of what happened yesterday, why they lost after the break. But before we do that, I do think Fitzpatrick, again, one of the best, actually, no, his best season of his career. But I'm sorry, his last game, he sucked. He really did.
You see, I think that's unfair.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It wasn't
unfair.
all his fault. Wasn't all his fault. There were passes that Marshall should have caught.
I mean, both interceptions that he threw, he got hit in the middle of throwing the ball. And he had Marshall open on that ball that was intercepted to the sideline. I also thought Decker ran an awful route on the ball that was intercepted in the end zone by McKelvin. You got to get inside position there, and Decker gets pushed out to the back post of the end zone. That you can't do that. As a top-tier receiving core, you have to do a better job and not catch the ball. And despite everything that went wrong yesterday for the Jets, Kenbrell Tompkins is, if he hangs on to the ball, he's going to run right by Darby and score.
And to me, that's the play that at the same time, despite Fitzpatrick's 3 interceptions on his last 3 possessions, that's the play that does stand out.
The third one, I'm not saying
the third one was a desperation.
Counts,
I give him
but
that.
Right, it's a desperation throw.
That's literally that's desperation to get downfield. The second one,
I didn't think he was his best. He was inaccurate. You're right about that.
Much. Very inaccurate.
He was high. He was a little wild, but I thought it was the same gutsy Fitzpatrick performance we've seen all year.
It just didn't work. The second interception, I thought he should have just went down. He was halfway in the air when he threw the ball.
But he had Marshall open.
He did. But
there was a missed block. I mean, what are you going to do? Mario Williams laid on him. That's just a missed assignment.
Just when I'm looking at that, he is literally throwing the ball on his way down. To me, he should have took the sack. And the first one, you can't do that in the red zone. You can't do it.
I'm with you, but Decker's got to. That was awful.
Everybody said, and listen,
Decker hasn't done that all year.
Fitzpatrick didn't have a great game. I'm sticking with what I said, but I will agree. He's part of the problem. He was not the whole problem.
The defense came out so sluggish.
The defense was sloppy. I mean, you let Buffalo get half of their third down conversions. Like, what is that?
The tackling, you see, the problem was that every once in a while the Bills are going for it on 4th down so much. Well, the Jets were turning 3rd and 8 into 4th and 2
and
or 4th
Darrelle
and
Revis
1.
couldn't block Sammy Watkins for his life.
The tackling was bad. They were creating 4th and short. And you know what? In a windy day like that, Rex Ryan's not kicking field goals. No way. No. And especially with nothing to play for.
Not with Dan Carpenter either.
The Bills were eliminated.
Yep.
Well, what do the Bills have to lose?
What do you got to play for? We'll take a quick break here. Coming up, we will get more into details on the Jets and the Bills, playoff implications, where the Jets go from here. We have Black Monday news throughout the entire show. I actually just got another tweet from Ian Rappaport. I didn't get it. I'm following his Twitter. I'm not that special, people. Chargers are expected to make some staff changes from what I hear. DC, John Pagano, in that job since 2012, is particularly at risk. McCoy is safe. Pagano is not.
Before we go to break, I like Mike McCoy. I think he's a good coach. He's had 2 9-7 seasons with this team. He got them into the playoffs. He won a playoff game at Cincinnati. I think San Diego has a nice roster when they're healthy. The problem is they lost 12 of 22 opening day starters, and we're not talking about a couple guys here and there. No, we're talking about Keenan Allen, who was voted an All-Pro in his career already, a wide receiver. Antonio Gates was suspended. They lost Malcolm Floyd on a couple different occasions. They've lost running backs. Melvin Gordon was a bust. I mean, and listen, I understand personnel decisions fall on the head coach, but I think you can't get on a guy when he loses well over half his roster here. So it's hard. And
the Chargers, Rams, and Raiders are sticking with their coaches for the potential move to Los Angeles.
The Rams one, I don't get it. I
Who
think
knows anymore?
Listen, Jeff Fisher is a fantastic drafting coach, and he knows how to find talent. But this guy is the king of 8-8. Yep. I'm sorry.
He is. What are you going to do? So we'll take a quick break. Coming up, we will continue our discussion with Jets Bills. We'll get into the playoffs. We'll discuss the college football playoff, which is...
Please. Don't even bring up the bowl season.
I don't even got words. I don't know. For the whole bowl season was horrible.
It was awful.
I'm just hoping for an actually pretty good national championship, which we will preview next week.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of MLB.
And don't forget, we have to. We really, we always talk about who impressed and who disappointed us. This is the big one. This is the season in retrospect. Who failed us and who didn't?
Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
No, they did. But so we'll get into some of that. We'll have our picks at 3:30 for Wild Card Weekend. All coming up on SMC Sports. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty. 17 minutes past the hour. Back after this.
Hi, this is Ed Helvey, founder of Montclair State Radio way back in 1966. And you're listening to 90.3 FM WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. Still the voice of Montclair State.
Makes you feel happy like an old-time movie. I'll tell you about the magic and the free your soul, but it's like trying to tell us.
20 minutes past the 1 o'clock hour. You are listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 WMSC, online at WMSCradio.com, and on the Live 365 app. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty. We are back in the WMSC studios for the first time, I believe, 2.5 weeks. Hope you all had a great holiday season, great Happy New Year. It's 2016, and 2016 means Wild Card Weekend.
Yes.
But before we get to that, again, we are still with the Jets right now, who lost 22-17 in Buffalo. The Steelers, with their win over the Browns, the Jets are eliminated from postseason contention. Pittsburgh is in. They will face Cincinnati Saturday night in what I expect to be one hell of an AFC North matchup. But before we get to that, we'll stick with the Jets and just, what went wrong. And, we can name a million things. You could start with the slow first half.
Sloppy play on defense.
9 yards in their first 4 possessions. Bills took a quick 7-0 lead with a rushing touchdown from Tyrod Taylor. Lack of carries for Chris Ivory, to me, was one of the bigger stories. 6 carries, 81 yards. I mean, especially with no Powell playing.
That was a killing loss. I thought Powell's been playing so well lately. He's done a really nice job in the passing game and running the ball. So that was a very difficult inactive for the Jets to have to deal with yesterday. The biggest issue for me was the defensive side of the ball and how sloppy they were. To me, it was like watching the Oakland game over again. It was just such a mess defensively. And like I said, they were turning 3rd and 8 into 4th and 1. And great, you made the stop. But if that's at the Bills side of the field, sure, that's outstanding. But not yesterday. Not with that in that game. You had to be 100% sharp. And they weren't. Yep.
And like you said before the break, in those conditions, and I don't want to blame the conditions on the Jets' sloppy play because that shouldn't be the case, but in that wind, Rex Ryan was not going for field goals, especially in a game that didn't matter to him. The only thing that really mattered was were the Jets getting in the playoffs or not. Revenge. That was it. And it was another revenge game for Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan has swept the Jets this year, and he cost them the playoffs. Yeah. So in a game like that, Dan Carpenter is not stepping on the field to kick a 30-yard field goal if he doesn't have to.
He's a good kicker, but after he missed those that first one and then he missed the extra point, that had just about solved it.
Especially again in that condition. So you're right.
And yet Bullock missed one as well on the Jets end of things. I mean, listen, I don't think that was such a big deal. I know people calling the fan and pointing to that as one of the reasons they lost the game. They still would have been down 2 going into that last possession. So I mean, it's difficult. I mean, sure, fair enough. You make a field goal, and you have a shot to win the game at some other point. But to me, that was a moot point. There was too many mistakes on the defensive side of the ball, especially when it came to the tackling and the coverage. I mean, letting Sammy Watkins run free, untouched.
Sammy Watkins, man. 11 receptions, 136
Yeah.
yards. Revis was almost like it wasn't even there. It's like he missed a flight.
I felt like they almost didn't really account for Tyrod Taylor's speed and his running ability. He was out and just wreaking havoc on them again, much like the Thursday night game.
And the Jets defense failed miserably on that. The secondary was not good. And again, like I said, I'm going to stick by what I said about Fitzpatrick, but again, he was only part of the problem. He was not the whole problem. But when you do look at those final 3 possessions, and again, the third interception was just desperation. We all know that. You go back to Tompkins, if he just holds on to the ball, the Jets are in the playoffs. And you know what? And I'm actually surprised that came up a lot this morning. I did not think it would because of how bad Fitzpatrick played in the fourth quarter. But again, I guess if everybody's bringing it up, Tompkins hands on that ball, Jets are in the playoffs.
It's the truth though, because no matter what happened, I mean, listen, at the very least, if Tompkins catches the ball, he gets knocked out of bounds on the Bills' side of the 50, and they make it a reasonable Hail Mary, like they could just throw the ball up and see what happens.
And there's still 24 seconds left on the clock. You don't even have to use a Hail Mary. So they could get even
closer. But he, in my eyes, having seen the play a few times from a few different angles, he was gone. There wasn't a Bill within 20 yards of him after Darby. If he hangs onto the ball, he's down the sideline, and the Jets get the wild card.
If anything, because of how hard the hit was, maybe it's a foot race to the end zone, but there was nobody there. The hit probably would have slowed him down because, give Buffalo credit, that was an amazing defensive play. To get your head into the ball and not get far enough where Tompkins can't get it back.
It's a really nice play by Darby. However, it was another... It was one step from it being another defensive breakdown at the worst moment, and we have seen this with Rex Ryan too many times. And on the interception that Fitzpatrick threw, where he was hit and going down, where he was looking for Marshall. Marshall was in 40 feet of space. He was gone. He was also going to walk into the end zone. For as well as I thought the Bills played on defense, they, again, had another couple of lapses, stupid personal foul penalties, typical things of a Rex Ryan coach team that make no surprise. And this is, and we'll get into them here shortly, but of our teams that disappointed me, I'll tip my hand here a little. The Bills, for me, might be number one. This is a very disappointing season from this group.
No,
I can't even. They went 9-7 last year with about the same roster, minus LaShawn McCoy, and Kyle Orton at quarterback. So when you throw in that they find Tyrod Taylor on their roster, who just happens to turn into a Pro Bowler and have a really nice year, and then they trade for LaShawn McCoy. They trade a linebacker, mind you, who they had no use for in Alonzo at this point. He was basically spent for them, and it was proven that they didn't need him because he was terrible in Philly. Between his injuries and his play, he was not good enough with the Eagles at all. But that move panned out nicely. Unfortunately, McCoy was hurt, but he still had a good year when he was on the field. It's such a disappointing season from Buffalo. I thought at least 10 wins should have been within. After seeing how well Tyrod Taylor can play, I thought 10 wins was extremely reasonable. And to go 8-8, and especially having been 6-8 and barely beating the Cowboys last week, and then having to fight tooth and nail. And the Jets, listen, again, the Jets were a worthy adversary with the playoffs on the line, but I mean, uninspiring from Rex Ryan. And I've speaking with my father about the league and about Rex Ryan. I love the terminology he uses for him. Rex Ryan's a politician. He comes in, he shakes a bunch of hands, he makes friends with everyone. Everyone loves him because he's big and he's brash. He's got all this personality, talks this big game, and then in the end, he delivers on none of it. And he's done it once again, just like the Jets.
No, I agree. I mean, well, the first couple seasons with the Jets.
Yeah, the first 2 years, yes.
The first 2 years, he
done a
almost
very
had
nice job there, but that's all well and good. So
after that was
what
horrific.
have you done for me lately? And,
yeah, I agree.
I think nothing. I like Rex Ryan as a head coach to a certain end, but my whole thing with him is those first 2 years, while they were good, I think those are the outlier compared to the other four that were not that good. The year that they went 8-8. And with Geno Smith his rookie year, that to me was his best coaching job, I thought, overall. Maybe other than his first year when they were 9-7 and they took off at the right time. But I thought to go 8-8 with that team that didn't have that much talent and barely missed the playoffs was a really good year. And that's whatever. It all went downhill from there afterwards for them. But it was, as I said, disappointing from Buffalo this season.
Yeah, and before we get into disappointments and who impressed and all that, we'll stick with this. Jets 3-11 on third down yesterday. And again, Tompkins catches the ball. They win the game. Jets finish 10-6. And again, and I understand a lot of Jets fans are mad. They're frustrated. They're upset. Same old Jets. To me, all of those points are valid. But a 10-6 Jets team, is that really same old Jets?
Well, yeah. That's the thing. It's not necessarily same old Jets because
it's a 500 record.
I mean, they've had a much
which
better,
is what they wanted.
A much better year. They are, they're over 500. They're right there. I think, listen, it's the disappointment of it all.
Yeah.
It's the having missed out. But like I said, this is a huge step in the right direction. And Fitzpatrick, as of right now, I'd say he's back next year.
I agree.
Like I said, the only way he's not back is if they can bring in a guy like Drew Brees, who's a Hall of Fame quarterback, who still clearly has something in the tank. This guy has played really well again this year. And it's the same thing as bringing back Fitzpatrick because it's a 1 or 2 year period. You're just going to bring him in, see what you can do. I think if you brought Breeze in, you'd probably it'd be a 2 year run and you see what you could do with it. Maybe you make a run at a championship because this roster overall is one of the better ones in my eyes in the league.
Yeah,
overall.
No,
the receiving core has gotten much better. And remember, this season, this is with Devin Smith hurt most of the year, the rookie they took in the second round from Ohio State, and Jay Samaro, the tight end from last year who had a nice season.
They've compared this season to like the 1998 Jets. They've said Fitzpatrick could be one of the more better quarterbacks that a Jets team has ever had.
Yeah, I would.
Don't get me wrong, Fitzpatrick had a great season.
It's the best season Jet quarterbacks had since Testaverde in '98 when they went to the AFC title game. He was very good, and listen, you pay attention to the quarterbacks to succeed with this franchise because there aren't that many. Vinny Testaverde came over, had like 2-3 good years in a row. Chad Pennington had a couple good seasons early, but then after the arm surgeries, he was shot. I know everyone gets on Ken O'Brien because they took him instead of Dan Marino in the draft, but Ken O'Brien had 4 seasons where he was absolutely unreal.
Yeah. And
they made the playoffs, I want to say 5 times with him at quarterback. They were decent with him. They had some good seasons. They won their division with him. Listen, none of these guys are Joe Namath. No one's accusing them of being that. Or, Brandon Marshall's not Don Maynard. He's fantastic, but he's not these Jet legends. But it's a great year. It's a big step forward. And I think you have to feel positive because, and I'm not saying right now, I understand you're going to be upset today because your season just ended. But going forward, you have to feel positive because I think Todd Bowles is getting better as a head coach. Mm-hmm. And Mike Maccagnan is an aggressive general manager who wants to make moves to fix the roster and help the roster.
First time I saw it was in the draft when he picked Leonard Williams when at the time he didn't need him.
The best move of the offseason for me, really, I mean, the Jets had some of the best moves overall. Between Leonard Williams and the draft, that was a steal. He was the best player in the draft class, and to get him at 6
and at that point, the risk was we got to take the best player overall because Scherf was off the board. He went to Washington for whatever reason we don't know.
And it helps them because in the long run, they're either losing Wilkerson as a free agent
and
this
Wilkerson
offseason.
Broke his leg yesterday, so who knows how healthy he's going to be.
They're either losing Mo Wilkerson or if Wilkerson's good, and I think he'll be, if it's just a break and
he'll be fine. He'll be fine for
training camp. Fine, and they'll pay him his money because he totally deserves it. He had a wonderful season. They can remove Sheldon Richardson from the situation, who is a problem off the field. Listen, this whole adventure this offseason.
I'm surprised he came back. I didn't think he was going to.
Yeah,
after
I know.
all that stuff happened.
Leonard Williams is the insurance policy that allows you to lose one of them.
Yep.
Because this kid can play. So it's difficult if it comes to that, but nonetheless, Williams is a nice addition. But between Williams, Brandon Marshall for a conditional 5th-round draft pick is a steal. The year he's put together, 14 touchdowns, fantastic season, and Ryan Fitzpatrick on a low-level contract. I know people say he wasn't going to be the starter. I personally thought he was going to be, and everyone wants to say that IK Enemkpali was the Jets' MVP of the season.
You know what I tweeted yesterday? I said if at the end of the game, if Geno Smith goes up to IK and punches him in the face, it'll make my life.
Oh,
I think I got like 6 retweets on that. I got love for that. Oh man, but I was thinking that I'm like, what if Geno goes to the middle of the field and just punches this guy in the face? Because originally I didn't see the number at the end when Tompkins dropped the ball. I thought that was IK on the play.
Oh no.
I thought that was IK for a minute. I'm like, nope, wrong number.
No.
But I was like, oh my god, if that was him, imagine that.
Right.
But But yeah, and we were even saying a couple weeks ago, was IK the unofficial MVP of the Jets season? Well, now really who is? Because at the end of the day, you were 10-6. Fitzpatrick did great. But what happened in the last game of the season?
Well, I know Brandon Marshall won the team MVP award from the organization.
I know, and he deserves it.
And he deserved it. And Fitzpatrick was fantastic, and he had not a league MVP caliber season, but he was one of the most valuable players of this team.
Could be a comeback player of the year.
He might be. This is a very good point. But I think going forward there's cause for positivity.
I agree.
And what they need to do, and I thought what you saw with them was they matured and gelled as the season went. So, early in the year, careless mistakes, a lot of turnovers. You think about the Eagle game, you think about the Bills game, the Raider game, just giving the game away, right? They stopped doing that as the year went on. They refined their game. They really cleaned things up. So I was very impressed with this as the year went on, especially having seen them do it in person a few times this season. I feel for them as a group. This team battled really hard. They needed to fight and get help, and they got it. And last week after the win against New England, I thought there was no way they would lose this week, but they unfortunately, in very Jets fashion, found a way.
Yep. To me, I didn't think this was going to be that type of year. I really was very high on the team when things started getting put together. I was really high on them this week in Buffalo. And, of course, everything in Cleveland really fell apart before they even had a shot to take the field. So, and even to me, and my dad's like, well, you said the same thing about Baltimore last week. I'm like, yeah, well, Baltimore's not the Cleveland Browns right now.
I mean,
I knew Pittsburgh was going to walk over them.
Austin Davis is, oof.
I'm like, Dad, when you have a third-string quarterback who slides inbounds with no timeouts, I'm like, that's at least not Ryan Mallett in Baltimore.
So part of our Black Friday coverage here, not to break from the Jets too much,
go
but
ahead.
there is some breaking stuff. Not that we don't know anything about Tom Coughlin yet.
I just saw that about
but
Eli.
Eli's quotes that they failed him. He did not fail the organization. They referring to the players.
Right.
And he's apparently quite emotional. I'm not trying to
think about
speculate here, but I would imagine this sounds like a situation where the long-term relationship might be coming to an end here, and I think it's unfortunate that it may be coming to this today.
What else can you expect? He's the only guy. He's the only coach he's ever played for in the NFL.
Yeah.
What can you
the same.
expect?
Beckham had similar comments that it's on the team and not on him.
Well, in his defense, he didn't have much to work with this year.
No, the roster. Listen, I put a lot of the blame with what's wrong with the Giants this season on Jerry Reese's desk. Okay,
yeah. He's gone too.
And
he won't have the
go.
chance to resign. He's getting
has
fired.
to go. I personally, I think, and I don't dislike Tom Coughlin or anything. I have a ton of respect for the man.
Who doesn't?
I just think he's run his course, and it's time to move on. And I would prefer him to resign so he isn't fired and has to deal with being fired.
If anything, I would totally not be surprised if ownership or maybe even he just went to the owner saying, "Do not fire me. I will resign."
Right? Yeah.
Let me go out that
way.
Let it be mutual.
Here.
Let me go out that way. Jerry Reese will not get that option. He's getting fired.
No, I think Reese has to go. It's been a disastrous last couple years. And listen, I know everyone wants to say, "Oh, well, Pugh's good, Richburg's good." Odell Beckham's such a great player. Okay, fair enough. But for all those, there are a lot of duds that he has gotten in this draft over the last few years. Landon Collins looks like a decent player. Is he going to be a stud? No. Eric Flowers got better.
Yeah.
And I do believe there is some responsibility that falls on the head of Tom Coughlin here. Personally, I thought he should have.
Oh, there were some play calls during the year. Absolutely.
Personally, I thought he should have gone 2 years ago.
Agreed.
And I'm not trying to be a hater here, but first of all, and I know everyone wants to bank on the 2 Super Bowl wins, but he hasn't won a playoff game since then. The only years
which was 4 years ago.
Right. The only years that he's won playoff games were in the 2 Super Bowl years. He's made the playoffs. He's been here 12 years. He's made the playoffs 4 times. And he hasn't won games in either of those other playoff seasons.
Yep, the years they didn't win a Super Bowl, he didn't win the playoff games. And,
right.
and go away from that just for a second. Jed York of the 49ers says Trent Ballock will find the next head coach and will remain the general manager.
I can't believe that Balky's staying on board. It's surprising. But
it is surprising.
Anyway, with sticking with Coughlin, I think when it comes to the situation with him in this city where the Yankees and the Mets and the managers and coaches have come in and out of this town for years, maybe more than in most cities, really. the Yankees have hired and fired Billy Martin 5 times.
And they were going to continue to until his unfortunate
and
death, too.
you've had people hired and fired, after winning championships, and for different reasons. Mike Keenan won the Stanley Cup with the Rangers and was fired 3 weeks later. Now, he had differences of opinion with the front office, but still, what I'm saying is Coughlin has accomplished a lot, and the 2 rings that he won should certainly be commended. But I'm not quite sure that I think they've hung on too long, is my point.
I agree.
And I think that's part of it stems from the fact the Maris have never hired a coach, John, that is.
Yes. Coughlin
was Wellington Maris' last hire, and I think there was a hesitation
his father hired Coughlin, not him.
To break from the norm and really to do it on their own. But I think now is the time to move on and start
I agree.
clean.
And before we go to break real quick, to me, I understand why they gave Coughlin a couple years more, but NFC East this year, this was one you had to win. 2
championships, that's equity, okay? That gives you some leeway to not be a playoff team every year. But it's run its course, I think. I just think he's lost touch with the team.
I think the bottom line was it's in this NFC East was it's win or else.
Yes.
And in this case, it is going to be or else. We'll take a quick break here. Coming up, we will start getting into playoff implications. We'll preview the games. We'll have our picks later at 3:30. We have college football playoff to get to as well. And don't get me started on the rest of the bowl games because they were all awful.
Oh, the Notre Dame game was just a thriller. I was so excited as a fan to sit through the 4 quarters of well-coached football from Brian Kelly. Oh, if only there was a pink slip for the college guys on Black Monday, too.
Your tweets were a lot of fun to read that night, too.
Weren't they?
They were so much fun.
You're welcome.
We'll have some NHL and NBA as well. A little bit of MLB.
It wasn't all a bad day in New York yesterday, by the way. The Knicks won. The Islanders beat Dallas. Yep. That's a good win. So,
but the
there is hope.
Knicks got to go on the road, though, where they have a lot of trouble. We'll get to that later. 39 minutes past the 1 o'clock hour. You're listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty. Back after this. And 41 minutes past the 1 o'clock hour. You're back on SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty in the WMSC studios. So this upcoming Saturday is officially wild card weekend. So the playoffs are officially set, which means all of our disappointing teams, including Dallas and Indianapolis, thank God they're done. Draft time, hooray.
As we watch on Black Monday for the Indianapolis news for Chuck Pagano.
And the Giants news, which should be coming very soon, too.
Yeah, the meeting should be concluding, so we'll break that for you when we have it. But,
absolutely.
Those are our 2 teams did not live up to the potential. But that's okay because we have our wild card matchups.
We'll be back next year. For now, we have wild card.
And it's stress-free. It's beautiful.
It's stress-free.
We don't have to watch these games with a rooting interest. We can just watch the game.
Oh, exactly. I almost put myself through a window twice last year watching Dallas in the playoffs.
The Detroit game was like a
The Detroit game was brutal.
Up and down the whole way.
Oh, my God. Shout out to my dad for surviving that one and all of his friends. You know, it's actually funny. During the Green Bay game, him and his friends from high school or like childhood or whatever, they all got on like a Google video chat during the Green Bay game. I'm not gonna lie, it was like the funniest 2.5 hours.
I'm sure it
ever.
was. I'm sure it was.
Actually a lot of fun. So we don't have to stress this year. So now we can preview everything totally unbiased and in peace.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes, we can.
So we'll start with the AFC because they have Saturday. So just going off on everything, like we mentioned before, Jets lose, Steelers win, Steelers have the 6th seed. That was guaranteed. What wasn't guaranteed was 1 through 5 until the conclusion of the Denver Broncos game. So Kansas City defeats Oakland 23-17, which was unfortunate for Charles Woodson, but he had a great career too.
You know what? I think from Woodson's perspective, he got just about everything he wanted out of this year. Now, unfortunately, they didn't make the playoffs, but the Raiders...
It was a good year.
I mean...
Good step up.
2 years ago, they're 2-14. Last year, they're 4-12. And now this year, they go 7-9. Steady improvement. He has mentored this team. He's mentored Carr. He's mentored Cooper on how to be pros. He had a lot of fun, judging by his reaction. And I don't think there's anything to walk away from sour. I think Oakland's one of the teams to look out for come next season. But
I agree.
You know, that's a conversation for another day.
Yep, and with Denver's win over San Diego, and we'll get into all of that later about Peyton Manning. 27-20. Denver has the 1 seed. Kansas City has the 5 seed. Denver wins the West. Kansas City won 10 in a row. Again, don't count them out. They're a big threat, and they're not afraid to go out on the road either. Miami defeats New England 20-10. New England has the 2 seed barely, because Cincinnati wins 24-16, and I believe it was on the Denver loss, or Denver wins. Cincinnati gets the 3 seed.
The Monday night game changed
Yep.
If Cincinnati hangs on, they could be the 1
Yep.
going into these playoffs, which that would change everything for them.
So wild card Saturday will be the number 5 Kansas City Chiefs versus the number 4 Houston Texans, number 6 Pittsburgh Steelers versus the number 3 Cincinnati Bengals Saturday night, and of course Denver and New England with the byes they will play next week. So we will start with Kansas City and Houston, which to me, just on paper, does not look good for Houston at all.
It's a mismatch. The Chiefs are red hot, and they totally believe in themselves and believe in the way they're playing. Alex Smith, a guy who I personally have never been a huge fan of, he has really got it going this season. He's been fantastic at times, so I'm really impressed with what he's done. Their defense is very good. Marcus Peters, the rookie corner out of Washington, is just a breakout star. I love this kid. I wish all our teams had a shot at him in the draft, and we didn't take him. But he's a fantastic talent, and Kansas City is better for having him. So I'm very excited about Kansas City's chances here. Their wide receiving group has got better with Macklin, Travis Kelce's awesome at tight end. We know how good their running game is, and it's amazing. In the absence of Jamal Charles now for a number of weeks, they've done a really nice job going out and getting the job done with Spencer Ware, Charkandrick West. So for me, Kansas City going into Houston, it's not much of a competition. I think the Texans will give you a gutsy performance. They'll play some good defense at home. They're much better at NRG Stadium. They get the crowd behind them, and they seem to have some more life and jump in their game. And they have Brian Hoyer. So
yeah,
Hoyer is not special, as I said before, but I think there's something about him kind of hard to put your finger on. But he wins ball games. He did it for them this year. Really, if they had stuck with him from earlier in the season when they had originally played Mallet, I happen to believe they would have maybe 10 or 11 wins. Really, they've been more successful. The team seems to respond better to Brian Hoyer at quarterback. So, you know what?
Yeah, Brandon, we can sit down for all I care.
Houston, oh, please. I love a guy who, and I don't care what Jerry Jones said, but this is a lifetime career backup who was awful and warranted criticism after the way he played in Dallas.
You know what was really funny, though? He goes, Dallas will be watching the playoffs on their couch. Did it ever occur to him that he's half the reason Dallas is watching the playoffs on their couch?
That's what I was going to say. He did not make it any easier for them to be not watching the playoffs on the couch. So you should stop throwing shade.
You come into a game against Indianapolis where you basically already had the win locked up and you beat Tennessee. Hooray, good for you.
Yeah.
If he had played Jacksonville this week, I guarantee he probably would have lost.
So yeah, I think Houston, they're a sneaky team, especially at home. That's the troubling thing about this matchup for Kansas City. I wanted to see the Chiefs get their division title. I mean, it's such an unbelievable story. It's nothing that I have against Denver. I just thought the home field, I don't really believe that much in Denver, and we can get into them more as we go here, but I don't trust them that much going forward here in this postseason. I think the Chiefs are very dangerous, especially if they can get a home game at some point in this playoffs. They might win that home game by 40. That place is so crazy and raucous. And they're not an explosive team, but they're a world of difference at home.
Sticking on Kansas City and Houston, though. Kansas City, probably hands down, if the Jets had made the playoffs still, Kansas City is still the hottest team in the AFC.
Oh, yeah.
New England has shown that they're beatable. Houston interchanges with 3 quarterbacks that you don't got to worry about them.
Right.
Cincinnati's playing with an inexperienced QB. So who knows what's going to come out of Cincinnati. And Denver's got a QB dilemma of their own. Yes. Houston's been inconsistent. They got a lucky light end to their schedule, and the Colts struggled big time.
Yeah.
Kansas City's won 10 in a row. Like you said before, Alex Smith looks unbelievable. Jeremy Macklin has been a great addition to this team.
Been a fantastic addition.
He's turned the whole thing around, and a ton of credit to Andy Reid too.
Gave them a deep threat. The problem, their best receiver was Dwayne Bowe, who 3 years ago was awesome, but his motivation's gone.
Once
I
drafted him, he got about 3 points a game.
Yeah, and beyond him, Jason Avant was probably their best receiver, and that's not enough. That wasn't enough to win games. So the moves they made in the offseason were impact moves, changed the complexion of their roster. So I like where they are going into this postseason. It's an interesting matchup though, because you feel like there's a possibility here of an upset.
Yeah. And from Ian Rappaport, Panthers coach Ron Rivera said Peanut Tillman tore his ACL out for the season.
That's a shame.
That's a shame for Carolina.
Because he said, Charles Tillman's one of the better, the last 10 years has been one of the best defensive players really in the league. I have a lot of respect for that guy. And a veteran, listen, he was traded to Carolina to try and go out and win a Super Bowl in his last year. Mm-hmm. So I feel for him. That's tough. That's very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are you going to do about that? But of course, Carolina has a week to take off, so they'll figure something out. At 15-1, you're going to host a playoff game. You're going to host both.
They
playoff
have depth
games
at safety and corner.
Absolutely, they'll be
fill
fine
for him.
But again, there could be an upset here. But in Kansas City, they are the hottest team in at least the AFC right now, so you can't count them out yet. They're not afraid to play on the road. I expect a great start to the playoffs with this game. I mean, it could be a mismatch too, but I expect Kansas City to play with fire. I expect Houston not to quit. So it could be a lot closer than people think.
An interesting game.
Could be a lot closer than people think. Pittsburgh-Cincinnati is going to be my favorite on Saturday. Here you have Pittsburgh, who, don't get me wrong, earned the number 6 seed, but got lucky with the Jets' loss.
They caught a break.
They caught a break, but they deserved it.
That was the football gods making up for them from the week before.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, going into this, was almost...
The Steelers made the mess, and they cleaned it up in Week 17.
They were almost just as hot as Kansas City was coming down the stretch. And they're so talented and so deep and so experienced when it comes... I mean, and we're talking coaching staff down. Mike Tomlin's been in these battles before. They have a ton of ability. It's not Black Monday. Sorry, it was a college basketball thing.
Oh, okay.
Updates.
We don't care about that
Sorry
yet.
there, folks. It's college basketball updates. But
couple more weeks, not yet.
Exactly. But when it comes to Pittsburgh, their experience factor makes them so dangerous. Their receivers are fantastic. I'm excited for this game because this is going to be a physical matchup.
And Saturday night, Pittsburgh, at Saturday night last year, they lost to Baltimore on the same night. So I expect a good game out of Pittsburgh. They earned their spot. Cincinnati had a great year, don't get me wrong. But, as good as A.J. McCarron has looked at the end of the regular season, I cannot trust this kid in the postseason. Not yet. This is not Alabama. So,
I understand what you're saying, and the NFL is a step up.
Yeah.
But he's a 2-time national champion. Won the SEC 3 times. He's got all kinds of accolades. He's played in every big game imaginable. And he's played in front of far more hostile crowds than he will in an NFL playoff game.
That part's true.
Nothing compares to Jordan-Hare Stadium where Auburn plays.
Yeah, I was just going to say
on a Saturday night for the Iron Bowl. Or the
and that was
national
and that was also basically for the SEC too.
Right, they're the SEC and defective, de facto national championship semifinal because the winner of the SEC is going to the title game usually anyway.
Yeah.
That's how good they all are.
At the time.
Right. It doesn't compare to those environments or, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. This guy has played in every stage you can think of with the cameras watching and the lights bright. He pummeled my Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the national championship game.
Pummeled is the most extreme understatement I've heard this year.
Pummeled would have been nice.
This year's only been alive 4 days.
Exactly. So he is a fantastic player when it comes to the mentality. Is he the most blessed physically or the most gifted when it comes to arm strength? Maybe not. But this guy's very confident. And
that you can't teach.
And that's what makes me feel like he gives Cincinnati more than a puncher's chance here, especially at home.
No, as much as I don't trust him in the postseason, not yet. I do expect this game to be close.
Right.
I expect the confidence to overtake him, and he's at home.
Might even expect a fight in this because this is just bad.
Oh, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati.
They said the last time they played each other that if they play each other again, there will be punches. And I hope they don't.
No,
that will turn the game into a sideshow. But
yeah.
I mean, this is going to get ugly.
I don't want Beckham Norman too out there.
Oh,
all right,
please.
And
don't even bring those two up.
How upset was I when I realized we weren't on the air the next week to cover that? Oh my God, my life was over. I was like, really? I'm like, that would have been the opening story on the next SMC Sports, but now that's old news, and the Giants been out of the playoffs since 2005. So that's how long I think it's been.
Selective memory loss.
Selected memory loss, exactly. But yeah, I expect a good game out of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
To me, I think there's a lot more riding on Pittsburgh than Cincinnati because, again, Cincinnati's got QB troubles. For Pittsburgh, and I said this in September, and I still think this, I think Pittsburgh is the biggest threat to New England in the AFC.
See, the thing is, from a Cincinnati perspective, what is weighing on them is their past history.
Yeah.
They don't beat Pittsburgh.
They don't win in the playoffs.
They don't win playoff games. Marvin Lewis doesn't win playoff games. Andy Dalton, now he's not playing, but by extension, the Bengals don't win playoff games. All right, let's just call it like it is on a general scale.
However,
here.
when was the last time they had a playoff game at home?
The year they lost to San Diego, that was 2000. Whatever. What was the Super Bowl that was here? 2013. Denver, Seattle.
Cincinnati had a home game that early?
Yeah,
Or that not too long
They
ago?
played the Chargers in the divisional round. They had the bye. They were the 2.
Right.
It was because then New England.
No, New England was number 2 the year it was at MetLife because Denver was number 1. Denver literally swept through the playoffs. Was it Denver?
I'm sorry, San Diego was 3, and they lost wild card Sunday.
How was San Diego 3 if Denver was number 1?
Cincinnati was 3. San Diego was 6.
I thought you said San Diego was 3. I was like, how could San Diego be 3 if Denver
I might have
was
said that if I did.
Yeah, because I was like, but Denver was number 1.
Remember that was the game. Cincinnati was already up a touchdown, and then Gio Bernard fumbled at the goal line, and the game swung on it turned on a dime, and from there on out,
I remember
they got
that.
shut out. Like they lost like 24-10
Yeah, I think San
from there
Diego
on out.
barely squeaked in the playoffs that year
Yeah, they won Week 17 at home,
and got help.
and they got a break on the other end, and then they went to Cincinnati. And remember Phillip Rivers had the bolo tie thing, the whole. Right. So anyway, but back to Cincinnati. This is a close game in my eyes. It's a physical game. They don't like each other one bit, and that's what makes me excited for it. Pittsburgh, they know how to handle this game. They're not nervous. There's no pressure here. This is just going through the motions for them.
Yeah. So with that, we'll take a quick break here. Coming up at the top of the 2 o'clock hour, we will preview the NFC side of Wild Card Weekend. Also in the divisional round as well, Carolina and Arizona both getting the byes. Carolina clinches home field at 15-1. So we'll get into all that at the top of the 2 o'clock hour. We have college football playoff to recap. And, of course, we won't get into the national championship because we have that on Monday, which we will get into on the next edition of the show. We have some NHL, a little bit of NBA, a little bit, not too much MLB news over the holidays.
Aroldis Chapman's in New York,
Aroldis Chapman is a Yankee. Daniel Murphy is a National. Maybe we'll touch on that later.
Oh, that was a shot.
Listen, honestly, we started it because we traded for Neil Walker before Murphy, and he did it. And Murphy was holding out because he wanted to be a Met.
Well, the Mets are just burning through cash and bringing in players. So this is just a dynamite.
Which is what they should be doing.
If only.
Which is what they should be doing.
If only this was a perfect world.
If this was a perfect world,
a Will Pond-less aggressive ownership.
If this was a
GM.
perfect world, the Wilpons would have sold the team in June when they put billboards up around the stadium. Mets would have won the World Series in the 5 games they should have won. Again, only in a perfect world.
This is a pipe dream.
Yes. This is a fairy tale.
Yes.
56 minutes past the 1 o'clock hour still stings. Right here on 90.3 WMSC. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty on SMC Sports. We will be back after this.
90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair.
Top of the 2 o'clock hour here on 90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. You are listening to SMC Sports until 4 p.m. Sean McChesney alongside Nick Flaherty. We are back in the WMSC studios. We're back from a nice vacation, even though we don't prefer to take vacations for sports radio because we miss too much.
Entirely too much.
Entirely too much. We missed the Beckham fight. We missed the Jets' comeback against New England. Well, not really a comeback because they were kind of really in it the whole game.
But the win itself.
The upset win, we missed that. But we did catch the Jets yesterday.
Yeah.
We caught it right away. So
had to deliver the bad news.
Unfortunately. And it really sucks for all Jets fans. I felt all your pain yesterday being a Dallas fan and being a Mets fan for my entire life. So I feel it all. I feel it all. But, oh my God, listening to the fan was so funny this morning.
I don't doubt it.
You know, and again, it wasn't even like Joe and Evan were mad. Evan was pissed.
Yeah.
But Joe was almost just like he didn't even want to be there. Like it was that bad. And I'm like, oh my God. Like Boomer and Craig this morning. Like I got up early enough to actually like listen to some of their show.
Right.
And Craig was upset. He's a Jets fan.
Of course.
He was fine. Boomer's totally impartial because he played for Cincinnati, so he doesn't root for anybody. He was fine. The funniest debate was if Manning had anything to do with the win yesterday, and we'll get into our own later.
Yeah.
But everybody except Craig Carton thought that Manning was the reason that they won the game. Now, again, there are some who say yes. And to me, I'm kind of in the middle, but again, we'll get to that later because we have NFC to preview.
Yes.
So we just previewed our AFC wild card weekend. That'll start on Saturday with Kansas City at Houston, Pittsburgh at Cincinnati Saturday night. Now, in the NFC, things were a little bit more set in stone before yesterday. Washington clinched the NFC East last week against Philadelphia, Chip Kelly's final game. They clinched the 4th seed because they are the worst division champions in the history of the NFL.
Who? Who?
Washington.
Seriously?
No, I'm just joking.
7-9 Seattle. We're gonna go there.
No, I'm joking, dude. Relax. I'm joking.
I was gonna say because you like that.
Because I like that. No, but seriously, they're the worst division champs this year. That's why they're the 4th seed.
Yeah.
Carolina defeats Tampa 38-10. They win the NFC South. They clinched the number 1 seed home field throughout the playoffs at 15-1. So they won't play until next week. Arizona loses to Seattle horrifically, 36-6.
I don't read that much into that game.
I don't either because Arizona didn't play with much. I believe Carson Palmer was out by the second half anyway.
They didn't. I mean, yes, they could have theoretically had the number 1 seed had they won and Carolina lost, but they didn't. To me, from the get-go, they didn't seem like they
Arizona
really
doesn't need it to me, I don't think.
I don't think they do for a couple of reasons, and we can get into that as we go, but I didn't think they seemed super motivated from the drop yesterday. From the opening kickoff, they didn't seem involved in the game. I mean, I know they cut it to 14-7, but I don't know. It never seemed like they were that into playing that game yesterday.
And because of that, they clinched the 2 seed. Seattle clinches the 6 seed. Minnesota.
That was because of last night's result, though.
Yes, and we'll get into that right now.
Yeah.
And Minnesota defeats Green Bay 20-13. They clinched their first NFC North title, so well deserved for this team.
Props to Mike Zimmer.
Oh, absolutely. And
great
because
coaching
of that,
job.
They clinched the 3 seed. Green Bay clinches the 5 seed. Let's kind of get into that before we go into the NFC wildcard weekend. Congratulations to the Vikings. They've waited so long for this. Green Bay's been on top for so long, whether they've had bad seasons or good seasons. Somehow they come out on top. This year, Minnesota has shocked a lot of people. They stayed in the hunt the entire time. They did what they had to do in the last 3 weeks. They went in a Lambeau yesterday. And keep in mind, they played Green Bay once before this year, and they got smacked. Smoked, whatever adjective you have for it, there it is. They went in a Lambeau yesterday and returned the favor. And because of that, they win the NFC North. They'll host a home game. However, it is against dangerous Seattle.
Yeah. My whole thing with Green Bay this year was, and I understand everyone wants to get on, they lost Jordy Nelson, and that hurt their offense. And I'm sure it didn't make their offense any easier, but Aaron Rodgers had, let's call it what it is, it was a down season. This was not an Aaron Rodgers type year. Normally, he and a lot of great quarterbacks in this league elevate the players around them to be better, and I thought he had a hard time doing that at certain points in this season. This is a very disappointing finish, though, for Green Bay. This team was 6-0 in complete control of the division, and they have come hurtling back to earth at 10-6. Very disappointing second half from them, especially at home yesterday. I thought they'd be much better, but they've done this on a few occasions. You think about Thanksgiving night against Chicago. Bad performance.
Oh, I picked Chicago to win that one.
Yeah, I picked Green Bay on the sheer basis that Bart Starr and Brett Favre, I'm like, there's no way that they're losing with these legends in the house, but they found a way to lose that game.
That's like Sean Martin saying the Cubs weren't going to lose on Back to the Future Day.
They had so many losses back and forth that, they seemed like they were finally taking on water and were sinking, but they would always find out a way to get out of it. The Hail Mary against the Lions seemed like it saved the season. It put them right back on track. They took off again.
Detroit out of it.
Got hot, took the Lions out of it. They put the separation between them and the Vikings, but the Vikings did a great job of just staying close and waiting for their moment, and last night was theirs. Now, listen, Minnesota is not super flashy. Adrian Peterson is a great player. He's the oldest player to lead the league in rushing. What a performance he had this year again, off the suspension and the injury.
He almost spoiled it yesterday.
Great to have him back in the league. Stephon Diggs has developed nicely. Teddy Bridgewater's had, I would say, a nice year. I wouldn't put it as like this elite level great quarterback year. He threw for 99 yards last night, and my concern is that I don't know if they can win a playoff game like that. They're going to have to, and I don't think he can make all the throws when it comes to pushing the ball downfield. I think what the Vikings are going to have to try and do is call some plays. Listen, I don't know if you saw how much you saw of the Vikings-Giants game 2 weeks ago on a Sunday night.
I didn't pay much attention to it after the first 5 minutes.
It was awful. But what I thought Minnesota did well, and they've done it for the last few weeks, was they started to work the screen game a little more intermediate routes. And yes, it takes them more time to get down the field. They're not going to put 40 points on the board, but they're effective that way. They use Jerick McKinnon better, the backup running back, and the kind of the screen game, throw him the ball out in the flat, let him make a play. Same things with Stephon Diggs, Mike Wallace. They have speed as a team. I think that's something they're going to have to execute. They did it pretty well last night. They ran the ball well, and that's going to be the key for them. If they can win a game, they have to run the ball. And really, I think for this matchup, and Seattle, I'm not crazy about Seattle coming into these playoffs. I know everyone's all on the Seattle hype train, most dangerous 6th seed of all time, experience. Listen, they're tough, and I think they're a bad matchup for a few teams. They're a bad matchup for the Vikings for sure. Mm-hmm. And we saw them blow out Minnesota a few weeks ago in Minnesota. Same situation.
Yep.
And I think they were a bad matchup for Carolina.
Agreed. And and they got the luck of the draw. I'm not going to say they were the dangerous 6th seed of all time, but they got the luck of the draw here. Because if they were the 5 seed and they got to go to Arizona, that's worse.
Right. See,
they did beat yesterday, but again, with Arizona was not playing with 100% of their starters.
To me, it's a wash because Arizona beat Seattle in Seattle by 14 points and came back from down 10.
Yep.
So I think these two are very even. I would take Arizona if you asked me today. Gun to my head, I'm saying Arizona.
Me too. But for me, because Seattle is where they are, I wouldn't. You know what? Don't count Seattle. I put them in the NFC Championship game now. If I can.
My whole thing with them, to me, Arizona was one who got the luck of the draw because they have already blown out Green Bay.
They didn't need the luck of the draw. They're the best team in the NFC.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I know we both are of the opinion.
But for Seattle, I put them in the NFC Championship game right now with what they've got. You got Minnesota, who I expect them to beat. You've got Carolina, who has shown that they're very vulnerable. They're 15-1, but look at the games that they just barely hung on for.
Yeah.
And they have not faced Seattle yet this year. And this is a rematch of last year's divisional game. If this happens, we're jumping ahead a week already. So this is how excited we get for the playoffs.
But Arizona has already played. They're either getting Green Bay or Minnesota.
Yep.
And they have played. Could they get Green Bay?
Who?
Yeah.
Arizona?
Yeah, they're getting.
Arizona
they're
gets
getting
the
Green
winner
Bay
of
or
Green Bay,
Washington. I take that back. I'm
Yes.
sorry. They're getting Green Bay or Washington. As of right now, that's what it would seem like it would be because if Minnesota wins, if Minnesota wins, they go to Arizona. They're the 3.
Oh,
Washington's
wait, that's right. What are we talking about?
Yeah, no.
here?
Okay, so they've already beaten Minnesota head to head. They thumped Green Bay.
Seattle wins at a 6 seed to go into Carolina.
Right.
Okay, we have to remember the seeds here.
Yeah. So if Arizona, let's look common opponents here. They've already thumped Green Bay.
Right.
They beat Minnesota on Thursday night in a close game by a field goal, I believe. Right? Yeah.
Game-winning
hit the
field goal, I
right.
believe.
They have not played Washington, but I would take them over Washington. Mm-hmm. So I think Arizona's set up here in a nice spot. They're getting 3 teams that they can easily beat and that they're better than coming out of this side of the bracket. They can't face Seattle yet. They're not the highest. Seattle, if they win, is going to Carolina, regardless.
That's regardless.
That's the only thing that we know right now. So it's going to be an interesting situation as we move forward here now, because from an Arizona perspective, they're set up nicely. Carolina's got to potentially deal with the tougher part of this bracket, because if Seattle comes down and has to play them, that might be a bad matchup. That's 2 teams to me who play the same way.
Yeah. I'd have to agree. We'll take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we will get into this week's NFC picture because
Green Bay.
Washington, Green Bay will start it off, and then we'll get into Green Bay. Or no, we just said that. And Seattle, Minnesota.
We did Seattle, Minnesota for the most part.
Pretty much. We'll get into Green Bay and Washington. We'll get into Black Monday news as well, because as we're following it, we still have a lot to talk about, especially Black Monday started last night for a lot of teams. So we'll get to that as well. College football playoff recap, NHL, NBA, all on the way here on SMC Sports, 11 minutes past the hour. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty. We are back right after this.
Hey, it's Jesse Leach from Kill Switch Engage, and you're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair.
right, 16 minutes past the 2 o'clock hour. You're tuned into SMC Sports right here on 90.3 FM, online at WMSCRadio.com, and on the Live 365 app. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty in the studio. We are back after a 2.5-week vacation. We're finally back on the air, at least for the next few weeks, every Monday from 1 to 4. So we got the NFL playoffs to cover. We have Super Bowl coming up soon, but for now it is Wild Card Weekend coming up on Saturday. We kick it off with the AFC. We have Kansas City at Houston, Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. We have Green Bay at Washington, which we're going to preview next. And, of course, we just got into
They're the second game on Sunday.
They are the second game. And, of course, we just previewed. We had Seattle at Minnesota, which I think I kind of may expect a blowout on the visiting side of things. So,
hint.
Yeah, hint. Picks at 3:30. We have Green Bay at Washington, which to me, you know, everybody's looking at this game as the NFC East was awful. Washington won basically on default, which is true. But Washington had a better season than we all expected.
Got red hot. Red
hot in December. They've won 4 out of 5.
5 is and they've won. What is it? 4. It's 4
they've
out of 5.
They've won their last 4 and won 4 out of their last 5
4 out of
games.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Green Bay has lost, I believe, 6 of their last 9.
Yeah.
After going 6-0, this game, I believe, is going to be the closest of the weekend.
Yeah, you know, I think at home the Redskins are much better. They've been awesome, but they're
6-2. 6-2 at home.
6-2. I think they're 7-1 at home.
I believe they are 6-2. I checked last night.
I will take a look. I think the only loss was the
They
Cowboy
have a
game.
very good home record. That is the guarantee.
Regardless, we can put it to you that way. Okay, they have a great home record. They seem more confident in front of their crowd, which is only reasonable. So I like where they're going right now. They're playing some great ball. Kirk Cousins has been awesome. He's going to earn every bit of the contract.
And do you want to know why?
Because we like that.
Because we like that.
And I'm happy for him, frankly. He seems like I really like him. He seems like a really easy guy to root for. He's had a great year. This team as a whole's kind of come together. Deshaun Jackson's had a good year. So I think the Redskins are dangerous. In this matchup, this is not a good matchup for Green Bay.
No, I agree.
Green Bay has got all kinds of offensive line problems. And Green Bay and Washington's pass rush, where guys like Kerrigan, Terrence Knighton has come in at the defensive line, and Baker as well. They've done a good job up front. They're good against the run. They got a good pass rush.
And for Green Bay, guys like Jay Elliott, Nick Perry, they're all hurt.
Yes.
So that doesn't help either.
Yes.
They're playing without 100% of their starters. They're not playing 100%.
One home loss. 7-1.
Okay, 7-1.
Yeah. 7-1 to the Cowboys. That was the Monday night game.
Oh, right.
That was it.
Tom Coughlin out as Giants head coach.
Tom Coughlin's gone.
He's gone.
Okay.
So
there it is. 102 and 90.
Well, we saw it coming, but we also saw it coming 2 years ago.
Yeah. So
now that it's actually happened, thoughts?
It is, in my mind, it's time that it happened.
I agree.
I have a lot of respect for Tom Coughlin. I think he's had a great run. He's done a really good job for these last handful of years with the Giants. He's got the two championships under his belt. But this is, I think, a move that might be put as maybe overdue. At least I view it that way. I'm not sure everyone does, but that's up to you, how you view his tenure and how you view the Giants' success rate. But the New York Giants have to move forward. And Coughlin is Sean, is he resigning? Do we have here? Do we have an official word?
As of now, it just said he's out.
I'm gonna lean towards he resigned. I'd imagine that the Mariners allowed him to resign, which I think is the right move. It's the right way to handle it. But
it actually says on Rappaport's Twitter, the Giants will not retain Tom Coughlin.
They'll not retain. Yeah, this is a mutual separation
here.
It's been a good run, and I think Coughlin going forward, he'll always be a respected member of the organization. He'll be a Giants member of the organization forever, right? He'll be one of those legends as a member of the organization that people will always love. So it's unfortunate that this day has come, but I think it was coming really regardless. It was going to happen eventually. And so now the Giants have to move forward. But Sean, as we said earlier in the show, if he's going, Reese has to go.
Reese is getting fired. That's got to be.
Reese has to go. Reese cannot continue as the general manager of this football team. There have been too many mistakes in the front office, too many bad decisions. And I don't want to hear any of this either, that Ben McAdoo has to be the head coach.
No, stop.
And maybe McAdoo can do it.
But
I believe there are people who are more qualified and can do more for this team Personally, I think they're number one candidate because they need someone to light a fire under this team and to get behind this group and give them a new culture would be the current head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. I love Chuck Pagano. I am a huge fan of his.
And we're still waiting on him.
And we're still waiting on the word. And if he is gone, I think the Giants should pursue him actively. I know Sean Payton's maybe the biggest name, and I love Sean Payton. I'd love for the Colts to bring in Sean Payton. I think a lot of teams would love to have Sean Payton as their head coach. But Pagano, to me, would be one of the better hires the Giants could make. He brings a really good demeanor, a good attitude. He's a football, type of person. And when it comes to identifying players, I don't personally believe that he's the one that's been making a lot of these personnel decisions, general manager wise, not general manager wise. I'm sorry, roster wise. When it came to the moves they've made, Ryan Grigson has been at the helm and has run this thing out of control. So we'll see if Pagano is gone. But if he is, I think that's a very trendy pick for the Giants. I understand everyone wants to say, why should we make Eli learn a new offense? You know what? I'm sorry. He's 35 years old and he's a vet of 12 years now.
I think he can do it.
He should have. It doesn't matter. Okay, he needs to do it.
You see, that was all that crap last year with him learning a new offense. I didn't buy it. I'm like, you've won 2 Super Bowls. You're an 11-year veteran. I think he can handle learning a new offense.
It's never easy, but it turns
People
over.
pull it off.
There is turnover in this league. Tom Brady has had coordinator after coordinator walk in and out because they've all gotten head jobs and they've all come back.
What happens with veteran quarterbacks? Like, for example, his own brother who went to another team and had to learn a brand new offense.
Yeah,
and bam,
right.
in 2 years he's in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. With Adam Gase, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, Gase would also be a nice hire for the Giants, but I like the idea of Pagano more, mostly because, listen, at least in my mind, when I think New York Giants, I think defense first. I think Lawrence Taylor, Harry Carson, Michael Strahan, Justin Tuck, Antonio Pierce. I know, and Eli Manning's a fabulous player, but I don't necessarily sit there and go, wide receiver, quarterback is the strength of their team.
Also, remember that the Giants had 2 very great defenses the 2 years that Coughlin won those Super Bowls. So remember that too. So
my whole thing is just I think it's time to go back to a defensive attitude, a defensive-minded person.
Yep.
And so I think Pagano would be a nice hire.
For Coughlin, and you know what? And it says here, sounds like former Giants coach Tom Coughlin is informing his staff now of the collective decision for him to no longer be head coach. So, it sounds like it's mutual, sounds like he resigned, but there is no official word on that. So we will be keeping you guys informed on that as the show goes along. And Pagano, same thing. Should be a decision by the end of the day. Sean Payton, same thing. There is an offer for Sean Payton, though. 2nd-round draft pick.
Yeah, well, Sean Payton, I don't even know if someone's going to be firing as much as they're going to part ways. I mean, he's had a great run there in New Orleans. He's a big part of the organization. They have a lot of love for him. So I don't know if there's so much contention there as much as they're just going to split and just go their separate ways. But anyway, back to our Washington Green Bay.
Yeah, we'll get to Coughlin later.
Preview. Well, we can delve into these coaches more as we go, but before we go to our break, we can get back into Washington Green Bay. As I said, Sean, for Washington, this is the perfect matchup. Green Bay has all kinds of offensive line problems. They are struggling defensively as well. Kirk Cousins is playing really well. So I don't really think that this is the best matchup for Green Bay. I think Washington, especially given their ability to stop the run, I like the Redskins a lot more in this game.
Who tweeted Chip Kelly head coach of the Giants?
That's a friend of mine I work with at Stop and Shop. He's listening along with us. Scott. I'm sorry, but I'm not a big fan of Chip Kelly. If you want to call in with us, Sean, shout out our number here for us.
973-655-4256.
Give us a call, Scott, and
973-655-4256.
We can talk it out. We love our callers and we love our listeners.
I would not want for Giants fans to
I
see
wouldn't
Chip
go down
Kelly.
the Chip Kelly road.
No, I wouldn't.
No.
And especially because they're going to be looking for a GM too. Don't even go there either.
Because
you know what? Chip Kelly, he's going to get a job, but
his
he will
track record is already
Chip
fantastic.
Kelly will never have that much authority again. And real quick before we go to break, let's finish Green Bay and Washington. To me, the Redskins, they're red hot in December. They find ways to win. They got the advantage of being at home, like you said. They're 7-1 there in 2015. They're winners of their last 4. Yes, inconsistent, but Green Bay losing 6 of their last 9. They lost last night, a game that they could have won in many situations. Minnesota almost coughed it up at the end, and they couldn't even respond well to that. And then the Aaron Rodgers pick in the end zone really just set it all off. But with a team that starts out 6-0 and you finish with losing 6 of your last 9, you know, it boils down to a much closer game than you're going to think. Like, you think, oh, it's the legendary Green Bay Packers.
Aaron Rodgers.
They've won the NFC North 5,000 years in a row versus the Washington Redskins, who won the division by default. No, I'm sorry. I don't see it that way this week. It's the playoffs. Anything can happen. It is a new season, new game.
I had said this a few weeks ago. My grandfather's a Giant fan. My dad is a Cowboys fan. We've been talking about this, that if one of the teams that won the division got hot and finished around, over 500, then I would be totally willing to give them a shot in a playoff game and also give them some respect here. Listen, if the Redskins went 7-9 or 6-10, then I would say yes, they won this division by default. But they went out there and they grabbed this division, they ran away with it at the end, and you can't fault them for that.
Exactly. They run away with it at the end. Yes, they took advantage of a sloppy division. But again, like I just said, it's a new season, new game. You saw it with Carolina last year. They responded after Cam Newton came back from his car accident. They finished 6-9-1. They win the NFC South.
7-8-1.
7-8-1.
Yeah.
Okay. So they win the NFC South. They beat
Arizona. For
Arizona.
me, that's winning a division by default for me.
They beat Arizona comfortably, and they had a shot in Seattle until the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show that in the playoffs, it's a new game. It doesn't matter what you did in the regular season. It's about, like you said, what are you doing for me lately?
It's a second season.
Yep, and Carolina, you almost beat Seattle. They had a shot until the fourth quarter, and then they ran away with it. But they got to the divisional game with an under 500 record, but no one's looking at the under 500 record because it's a new season.
Yeah.
So that's the bottom line for Washington. Don't count Washington out in this game. They're at home. They're successful at home. Could I expect a Green Bay blowout? Of course, it's Green Bay. They do it every now and then. But again, to me, it's going to be a closer game than a lot of people think. Take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we will get into the college football playoff, more firings and all that stuff on Black Monday. Man, Black Monday, isn't it fun?
If you're not one of the losers,
If you're not one of the losers. I mean, I'm one of the losers, but at the same time, Garrett's going to stay. I really don't care.
I don't think he has to go.
I don't think he does either. I think you have a repeat performance next year. Jerry Jones is going to clean house.
Forget a repeat performance. I think the leash is short. I think a 0-2 or a 1-3.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Gets you gone.
Repeat performance, you're gone for the end of the
4
year.
and 12, obviously, yeah. But no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Garrett will be gone halfway through the year if he does this again.
The leash is short next season.
Yes, absolutely. So 28 minutes past 2 o'clock hour, you're listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty. We are back after this. Do you make music? Are you in a band? Or maybe you're a solo artist? Do you want more exposure? Look no further. Montclair State University's Underground Radio 90.3 WMSC is always looking to put new music on the air. So artists, listen up. If you would like to send music to WMSC, you can send a digital copy to music@WMSCradio.com. Keep in mind that music with offensive language or content will be subjected to FCC regulations and censored if needed. Questions? Call the request line 973-655-4256. So what are you waiting for? Send in your music to 90.3 WMSC now. And 36 minutes past the 2 o'clock hour, you're tuned into SMC Sports right here on 90.3 FM, online at WMSCradio.com, and on the Live 365 app. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, and now we are being joined by somebody who has been a part of SMC Sports. During the fall semester, we have Dan Collins on the line to talk Tom Coughlin and the New York Giants. Dan, welcome back to the show. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty well. Happy New Year, guys.
Yes, Happy New Year, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for joining us.
So, Dan, we just heard the news. Coughlin's gone. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I'm a life. I've really started watching football when I was about 10, which is probably that was about the first year Coughlin was here as head coach. It's like it's like during the season you hear all the talk and everything. It says, Coughlin could possibly go, could go. Once the news comes, it's like, holy crap, it hits you. It's like it's a sad day for us Giants fans, but maybe this is probably for the best decision. I mean, just by looking at the past 3 years, and then obviously some of the games that we lost, kind of, in a way it doesn't surprise me, but in a way it's like, can't believe it's all over.
Yeah, that's kind of how I said it when we found out the news I'd say about 10 minutes ago. I was like, we have been talking about this for a little over 2 years now, but now the news is finally here, and you're almost speechless, like, wow. And I think it was great for the ownership to let him walk on his own. He's had that legacy for 12 years. He won 2 Super Bowls. Really upgraded that team from where they really were back in the day. So when you look at it, and for the ownership to have the respect for him to let him walk, because they're not going to do the same for Jerry Reese. He should be fired within the next couple days, hopefully.
A couple days, couple hours.
Couple hours. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt too. It was nice to see them let Coughlin walk on his own.
Yeah, I'd have to probably say that too. I mean, regardless of what's happened, I mean, nothing can take away those 2 Super Bowl runs. That's one thing to say. And now they're saying it's resignation. Like they said, if he didn't resign or walk on his own, he was probably going to get fired.
Yeah, I think he was gone, and the Giants allowed him to kind of go on his own terms. He says he already said he's interested in still coaching going forward, so we'll see how that goes. I don't know if he'll get a job immediately. He's very respected, but I don't know if at 72...
69.
I thought he was 72.
69 years old.
I'm sorry, 69. Well, I'll take that back. 69 years old.
My mom thought he was 81. I had to check.
Wow. My apologies to Tom Coughlin, but at 69, I don't know if he can get a job so quickly just go right back in. You know, I don't know if anyone's going to commit to him long term again.
Yep. It's a sad day, but there's no doubt he's going to be in Canton sooner. Well, not soon, but there's no question he will. It's just a matter of when.
Nick may have another opinion.
I don't know.
That.
We'll see. He very well maybe.
He'll be in the Hall of Fame soon, but I wouldn't say maybe 5 years. I don't know if he's the first ballot, but he will definitely have his day in the Hall of Fame. Dan, anything else?
What else here I am? I think we got ourselves a quick note. I think this is going to be a wild card weekend.
There you
go. Wild card weekend. It
very well may be a Wild West and a wild card weekend.
To me, there's going to be a lot of upsets this week. Dan, I appreciate you calling in, man. I hope to talk to you soon.
No problem, Sean. Take care.
You too, man. That was Dan Collins.
Friend of the show?
Friend of the show. He was on our show in the fall.
Great to have him back.
Absolutely. We're breaking Tom Coughlin news. We're going to be talking about it probably throughout the remainder of the show as we go forward. But, while we have another few minutes, though, before we do go into the college football playoff, I did write down a few topics that I thought were worthy of maybe you and I going at it a little bit.
Yes. Let's go.
First one, we talked about it before, and I think we're both on agreement here. Would Peyton Manning's presence have made a difference in the win against San Diego last night?
Mentally speaking, yes. I think the team responded to him coming onto the field and what he did. He didn't do much. He went 5 of 9.
Yeah,
but I think he showed
yards.
some command of the offense. Frankly, it wasn't even Brock Osweiler's fault. I thought the routes the receivers were running were terrible. A lot of dropped passes. He threw interceptions. They were bad interceptions. But listen. This Denver team, one of my biggest problems with them is I think there is a quarterback controversy, despite what people want to say. And I'm not saying that Brock should play, but you hear quotes coming out of yesterday's game that players in the team are saying, well, I didn't think Brock was playing that bad. I didn't think this. I didn't think that. To me, that says we have a problem here. Mm-hmm. I think he is the right person going
Kubiak's
forward.
Got a big problem.
I think it goes beyond quarterback. There's times there's a question of motivation. Demaryius Thomas has had a down season.
To me, how this team ended up being the number 1 seed in the AFC.
It's
almost a waste.
The injuries killed New England, and you and I talked about this yesterday, and we used the term waste. Maybe that's not correct, the exactly correct term, but I don't think that they are
worthy.
Maybe worthy or. Their season, they're as good as that. You know what I mean? I'm not quite sure. Their defense is fantastic.
Oh, their defense is the reason they're in the playoffs.
But I have a lot of questions about them moving forward.
Because, again, when we go back to September, I didn't pick Denver to be in the playoffs. I did not expect the defense to step up and be this good. If they weren't in the playoffs because Peyton Manning had a horrific first half, got hurt. Brock Osweiler led the team for a little while. The defense kind of slowed down, but at that point, it was too late. Denver had basically already unofficially clinched a spot. So they had done their part. Without the defense being as good as they were, Denver was not making the playoffs this year.
No.
So,
any other subject matters, sir?
Well, I agree with you on that. I think mentally, Peyton Manning changed the game. I think San Diego's defense switched off when he got on the field.
Yeah.
And for him to change the offensive command and everything, and I thought Kubiak, I don't say he was a genius, because he was playing for a 1-seed, 3-seed, or a 5-seed, so it was a big risk to do what he did. But now he's got 2 weeks to work with. Because, again, if he had lost, he's playing on Saturday. But because he won, now he has 2 weeks to figure out what he's going to do. Because what the strategy was, and not a lot of people are understanding this, to put Peyton Manning back in, the entire offense has to change. Now, obviously, stats-wise, it was not the best move for Peyton Manning to come in. Stats-wise, I thought you were ridiculous to do what you did. But for him to come into the game and change the entire offense. That was Kubiak's test to see if the offense would respond well to Peyton Manning coming back onto the field. Sure enough, mentally it worked, so now Kubiak has something to work with in practice the next 2 weeks. Now, if it didn't work and they got to play next week, Kubiak knows what his decision's going to be. It's going to be Brock Osweiler playing on Saturday, but you don't have to worry about that now because Peyton Manning's presence alone, to me, shut down San Diego from
It rubbed off on the team and on the game
Yeah.
itself. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
And of course, just on this, Brady suffers sprained ankle. Will be ready for the playoffs. Is New England still a favorite to win the AFC?
They're the favorite, but I don't think Denver could beat them, even if it was at Mile High. I really don't trust Denver against them. New England should have beaten them the first time. Kansas City and Pittsburgh are their two biggest threats, and they play Kansas City in round 2. A lot of, to me, what happens for New England going forward hinges on who is ready to play that game, injury-wise. Edelman, Amendola, McCourty's banged up, Collins is banged up, Brady will play, he's banged up.
Edelman should be back. Right?
Everyone is beat up in New England, and they've got some issues there. If they can get healthy and get as many of those guys back to or as close to 100%, absolutely, I think they are the favorite. And I think they'll probably still end up hosting the AFC title game because I'm not that high on Denver here going forward, especially if they have to play Pittsburgh, who's already beat them. And Kansas City has beaten them and probably should have beat them twice this year. So it's going to be interesting, but I still lean towards New England.
So you're going to love this.
Yeah. Does it involve the Colts?
No, this involves the Giants. Jerry Reese is safe. That's at least what they're saying. I don't know if I read this right, but who is this? I can't pronounce the girl's name, but she's a reporter for NFL Network. I apologize. Told the Giants GM Jerry Reese is safe. Dude, we can't have dead air here. You got to say something.
I'm sorry. I don't mean for the dead air, but I think the silence says it all.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not even a Giant fan, and I'm mad.
I agree. I got to find another source for this, and not for that. It's just I can't pronounce the girl's name. I really can't. But Ian Rappaport retweeted it, and he says that answers to that. So Reese is safe. Why? Don't know.
I think the house has to be cleaned out here completely. This tells me that McAdoo's getting a shot to be the head coach.
And Sean Payton is monitoring the situation with the Giants very closely. So
great, thanks. Ruined my day.
So while we go off air, because we could say other things off air, we'll take a quick break.
I don't get it.
When we come back, we will get into the college football playoff. Again, we won't preview the national championship. We will save that for Monday because it's the same day. NHL, NBA to get to. Our picks at 3:30 for Wild Card Weekend. We're not doing an hour anymore because we don't need to. There's only 4 games. And 49 minutes past the 2 o'clock hour, you are listening to SMC Sports, the return of SMC Sports, I might add, on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty in the studios. And before we went to the break, we broke the news that some reports were saying GM Jerry Reese is safe. Whether that is true or not, we figure we'll stick with this for the next 10 minutes because Nick was flipping out off air about this.
I'm sorry,
so Nick,
and I don't mean to get all hot and bothered here. And
I understand why,
I'm not
though.
trying to get anyone fired, but the Giants, if you're going to blame someone here, I don't think Coughlin is the person who should be the fall guy.
I agree with you. If anybody should have been safe, it should have been Tom Coughlin.
I understand that you can't fire the team. You have to fire the coach. But this team has been put together by Jerry Reese, and this is not a roster.
He's had a million bad draft days, too. A million of them.
He hasn't had many good draft picks beyond guys like Beckham and Richburg and Pugh. There's not a whole lot of good picks in this organization this last 10 years. I'm sorry. And I'm not a Giant fan. Listen, there are Giant fans out there who may be happy. I know a few myself on Twitter who are probably freaking out right now.
I wonder what Dan Collins is thinking right now.
We may find out, but nonetheless, I don't understand if this is the case. Which, listen, judging from the sources that we've heard this from guys like Rappaport, Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network, Albert Breer, I'm going to stick with those guys because they seem to be in the know. Yes, they've gotten things wrong, but right now I'm going to go with that.
All the best get them wrong every now and then.
Ask Adam Schefter and that videotape of Des Bryant that never came about.
Never came about.
Way
ever
to go with your journalistic integrity.
And of course, you go back 2 weeks ago with Odell. A lot of reports were saying he was playing Week 16.
Right.
Turned out he wasn't.
Right.
So we're not going too deep into this, but it's just the thought of this guy sticking around after the couple seasons.
I can't
it's
comprehend
crap.
this. I can't comprehend this move.
Just the thought of knowing that he may stay and Coughlin is the one that had to resign or be fired is crap. I'm sorry.
I don't understand this move. I think that you have to clean house completely. Though, if there's any reports that they're monitoring, Sean Payton is interested in the job, it's an intriguing move. I think it's a great hire for the Giants, but personally, I don't understand where Sean Payton's going with that if he's going to take the Giant job. Personally, I see the Giants as being in the same boat as New Orleans. Yep. It's a team with a middle-of-the-road to bottom half of the league defense, with an okay running game, a good quarterback, and really the thing that New Orleans doesn't have is an elite receiver, and the Giants have an elite receiver. But after Beckham, not much offensive talent beyond Eli Manning.
What does that matter with a 6-10 record?
Yeah, I mean that's to me. I don't. That would kind of puzzle me as well. But we'll save Sean Payton for another day. I'm sorry.
That could be coming up sooner than later because the Giants' head coaching job is probably the biggest in the NFL right now.
I'm not trying to be biased here.
The Colts. Definitely the two
biggest. If you get the opportunity to create a relationship that could last potentially 20 years and create your own Belichick-Brady with Andrew Luck, especially when Sean Payton's MO is that he's a quarterback-first guy and he's coaching
I can agree with that because Eli's not getting any younger.
Eli's going to be, 35?
Something like that.
And he's near the end of the line. I'm not saying that he's a bad quarterback or anything, but I just think if you're looking to set yourself up for years to come, I think the Colt job is the first one, is the biggest one. Not sure if it's the most important one that gets filled first. Some teams might jump the gun and hire someone. I'm serious here. I wouldn't be surprised if McAdoo gets the job. If Reese is staying, then that means
who knows what they're going to do at this point.
Then that means to me that the staff is staying.
Yeah.
That McAdoo's staying and Spagnuolo's staying, which I don't understand either. I'm sorry.
I just got a call. Jerry Reese offered me the head coaching job because at this point, who knows who they're bringing
Sean,
in?
you and I could do a better job than this crew.
Really, who knows who they're? Yeah, you're gonna be the GM when Jerry Reese gets fired because the Mariners don't know what they're doing.
Steve Spagnuolo has put together, and I know he doesn't have a ton of talent to work with, but it's a little ridiculous. People saying he's had a great season when he's ranked 28th or 30th in every major defensive category. So I would have cleaned house. I think they should clean house, but it doesn't seem like they're going to go that route. They're just going to remove the coach. They're going to keep the coordinators, which that's another thing. Listen, if you're firing the general manager, then the coach has to go. Yeah. And if you're firing the coach,
GM has to go.
His staff has. Well, the GM can maybe stay.
In most situations, the GM wants to pick their coach.
Right. Well,
so
Jerry
in
Reese
most situations, if Coughlin goes, so would Reese.
I know, but Reese could pick his coach. Reese,
I guess that's what they're letting him do.
Him. What I'm saying is, if the coach is going, then his staff has to go.
Right.
If Ben McAdoo and all these guys, they're going to run their own system, independent of Sean Payton or anyone who is the hire.
No, I agree with.
And that coach will want to bring in their people. So to me, this is already the 100% wrong way to go about this. If these reports are true, which I mean, I haven't seen anything that says otherwise right now.
The Giants' season has been over for 22 hours, and they're already screwing up their offseason.
Wow. Yeah.
Seriously. You know what? I understand the decision to let Coughlin go, but you gotta go all the way there. You gotta, this is a situation where you're in the process of rebuilding your team. That starts with the coaching staff. It starts with the front office. You gotta clean house. And again, if these reports are true, you're already off to a horrific start to your offseason.
I just think after 4 consecutive losing seasons without a playoff, 3 straight losing seasons,
4 without a playoff,
and 4 without a playoff berth. This isn't acceptable.
No,
this is not. This is bad. Everyone has to answer for this.
Yep.
No one gets away with this.
Mara's got to answer for this. Reese has to answer for it.
But the owner's not going anywhere. The owner's not going.
Well, of course not. But he's got to answer. You gave Coughlin the ultimatum to resign or get fired, but you're going to keep the GM that is responsible for all this.
This is not acceptable to continue like this in this fashion. The Giants are a team that wants to be a winner, and in this market, they want to be a winner. And let me tell you, if they don't make the right moves here, they're going to be worse than the Jets again.
Yep.
So this is bad.
At this point, the Jets could go 4-12. They'll be better than the Giants next year. That's the route they're going.
This is a bad start to a already critical offseason. Yep. This offseason is very important going forward.
Jets could go 4-12 next year, and at this route, they're still going to be better than the Giants.
I don't know about that, but
you know what my point is. Oh my God! Again,
I can't even believe this.
Again, 2 weeks ago, we had the example of everyone thought Beckham was coming back, and he wasn't. So, again, we don't know if these reports are true. Just the thought of them being true is what's making me pissed off here.
Yeah.
And as a Dallas fan, it's pissing me off. Because you have a guy in Jerry Reese who is responsible for all this, maybe has only had maybe 3 good draft picks in his entire career, and is getting the opportunity to pick his head coach. The coordinators are staying. Nothing is going to change here, except their record, and is going down.
Unless there's a significant improvement in roster, I don't like this at all.
They're going to have to draft God in the first round.
Wow.
And he's going.
I don't think he's available.
I think he's going to Tennessee.
I think he's staying in school. So
exactly. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back from the 3 o'clock hour, I promise we're getting in a college football playoff this time, unless more breaking news happens. So at least we can guarantee we might not get to the college football playoff when we come back from the break. But that is our intended plan. When we come back at the top of the 3 o'clock hour, we have our picks at 3:30. A little bit of NHL and NBA will get in probably in between 3 and 3:30. But, man, Nick, I feel you, man. And, again, we're not even Giants fans. We're not even New York fans for football.
Bothers me.
Like Yankees, Mets, both of us all the way. But when it comes to football, we're not affiliated with New York.
A lot of people here. Gary Myers from the Daily News says that he won't be getting fired.
Oh, my God.
Obvious with Reese press conference tomorrow that he will not be getting fired. So I guess
now it's multiple
I'm going to assume
sources.
that Reese has a presser tomorrow to talk about the plan going forward.
Yes. That's unbelievable.
Wow.
So,
I'm sorry. I can't wrap my head around this.
I'm shocked. I mean, I really am. Like, you have a guy like this, he's going to keep his job. And like you said before, you said it best. If there's one person who isn't to blame in this whole thing, it's Tom Coughlin.
I think Coughlin deserves some blame, but if someone was going to stay, I think he should be the one.
I think both of them should have gone, but if you were going to pick one, it should have been Reese, not Coughlin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
And then the new GM will butt heads with Coughlin. Coughlin will go next year. That would have been what would have happened.
But you'd have Idzik Rex all over again.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
58 minutes past 2 o'clock hour. We'll take a break. SMC Sports on 90.3 FM until 4 p.m. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty. We are back after this. Top of the 3 o'clock hour here on 90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. Sorry, my headphones weren't up. Couldn't hear myself. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty in the studio, and we just got done discussing the whole Jerry Reese thing, whatever. Dude, I'm sorry, I got no words here. I mean,
nor do I.
You have a season like that, and it's just unbelievable. Like, I'm sorry, I have no words for this.
No.
Like, that's just unreal, ridiculous, and bottom line, just horrendous for the Giants. I really do feel bad. They're a top rival, but I feel bad at how bad they're going to be next year.
I feel for their. Well, let's not say that.
Their fan base.
Don't forecast for the future, but I feel bad for their fan base. Is the truth? Yes.
They're getting cheated out of an opportunity here. Which, don't get me wrong, they still got a while before they're going to be.
They got a long way to go as an organization.
But
a lot of work to do.
But getting rid of Coughlin and getting rid of Reese would have been the first step up.
Yeah.
So, and then the coordinator soon probably would have followed too after that. But whatever, man. I mean, doesn't really affect me that much. I mean, and it's still making me upset. I just don't have words for this. So we'll change topics for now. We'll get into the college football playoff, which overall the bowl season I thought was garbage.
Oh, it's awful.
All these bowl games you've never heard of before, all these sponsors you've never heard of before. We're not even going to get into those. I mean,
over 40 bowls. We have four teams, that finished the regular season under 500 and played a bowl.
And played a bowl game.
Because there's too many games and not enough people to play the games.
There's way too many games. Way too many games.
Just a disaster of a bowl season. Games weren't close. Games never felt competitive. The Notre Dame-Ohio State game was one of the better ones of the New Year's Six, and that was not really even that close. Another typical Notre Dame Brian Kelly performance. I was very disappointed as a fan, and I don't know where they're going to go from here. But I was disappointed there. The playoff games, let's see. Clemson, Oklahoma for a half was fantastic.
For the half was good because Oklahoma was leading at the half.
Yeah. It was awesome to watch. Tight game, pretty evenly matched. And then, it just, man, did it get out of control.
You're absolutely right.
It was bad, and Clemson had all kinds of wrinkles they threw in on offense and defense, and this is without their best defensive player, Shaq Lawson, who went out in the first
start
quarter.
with that. We'll start with that. So number 1, Clemson defeats number 4, Oklahoma. Oklahoma was actually favored in this game.
Yeah, which I personally was
I
against,
understand
frankly.
that. So Clemson wins 37-17. They will be in the national championship 7 days from tonight. First championship playing for their first championship since 1981. 17 straight wins. And so you got to tip your cap to them. Deshaun Watson, game to remember. He beat the Sooners with his arm and his legs, threw for 187 yards and a touchdown, and ran for 145 yards.
Yep.
Gallman rushed for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. Clemson's defense was fantastic. They forced Baker Mayfield to become uncomfortable. The O-line for Oklahoma failed him. He made so many mistakes in the pocket. It was awful, especially in the second half when Clemson really took over the game. They dominated time of possession, which this late in the year, you cannot afford for your defense to be on the field that long, and that was Oklahoma's downfall the entire game.
Yeah. It got out of control. The turnovers in the second half were killers. Disappointing from Oklahoma in the second half, but they had done this over the last few years in big-time games of this nature. So, we'll see where we go from here with this playoff final. The Michigan State-Bama game, I picked Michigan State. I thought they had an opportunity to win this game. They were there. Listen, they
it was
were
a good first
overmatched.
quarter.
They were overmatched, but down 10-0, they put together a nice drive there to end the first half, and Connor Cook throws a pretty rough interception down at the goal line that changed the game completely, because if they were able to, at least kick a field goal, it's a one-possession game, but if they get in the end zone, they score the touchdown, it's 10-7, and I'm not saying they win, but at least it feels different going into the locker room. 10-0 with the interception, that felt like it was a mountain to climb. And Alabama just rolled, Heisman winner Derrick Henry, who, listen, I know I had said on our show that I wasn't necessarily so sold on him winning the Heisman. And to me, Christian McCaffrey proved all of that and more and more
right
to be the wrong move in my eyes. I thought he was fantastic in the Rose Bowl. Took the first play from scrimmage, 75 yards for the opening touchdown of the game. He played a brilliant game. He proved a lot, and I think next year he can, start his own Heisman campaign. But the Michigan State-Bama game was a disaster.
Michigan State didn't look like they belonged on the field with Alabama after the first quarter. And again, Michigan State, given their credit, they held them scoreless in the first quarter, but they go down 10-0 at the half, and they collapse in the third quarter by giving up 21 more points.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable. Calvin Ridley with 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry ran for 2 touchdowns as well, but he was held to some yards. Connor Cook did not look good at all. He went 19 for 39. He threw 2 picks. Just an unbelievable disaster for Michigan State in what was a great season to end like this.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to sour. That Big Ten title game alone was an instant classic.
Yep.
So
you and I watched it together.
Yeah, it was a great game.
That was the difference between
22-play drive
between Iowa, and Michigan State playing Alabama in the championship.
So it's
in the Cotton Bowl.
Just disappointing, frankly, because this bowl season was such a disaster.
No. When last year the inaugural college football playoff I thought was fantastic. This year, not really much.
The first game was good for 3 quarters, Oregon, Florida State, but then it got really ugly.
I love to see Jameis Winston get pounded into the ground sometimes. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Yes, Marcus Mariota, if Sean's listening.
But
the Sugar Bowl was great.
The Sugar Bowl was a really good game. The Ohio State-Alabama game was really solid. It was close. Physical game. You had Cardell Jones and A.J. McCarron on the other side. It was
Cardell Jones.
Not A.J. McCarron, Blake Sims.
Yeah.
It was an interesting game to watch. Ton of fun. These games didn't even compare.
No, absolutely not. You can only pray for an unbelievable classic next week.
That the Fiesta Bowl wasn't good, the Sugar Bowl wasn't good.
None of them were good.
None of it was good at all. Ole Miss trampled Oklahoma State. I thought that we had some great bowl matchups. I remember actually doing my DJ test and talking about the matchups and saying how good they all were. And
felt like the NBA playoffs.
This is awful.
Just without the prior knowledge of knowing it was going to be bad.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
It's not been a fun bowl season. Thank God for TCU Oregon was a thriller in the Alamo Bowl. That was a classic.
Yeah,
that was fantastic, and TCU looks set up for next year again.
Yep.
Gary Patterson's one heck of a coach.
But overall, the whole bowl season was crap, and you can only hope for a classic next week out of Clemson and Alabama.
Yeah.
And again, we're going to preview that next week. because it falls on a Monday.
And
just
I
when
thought
our show
the
is.
other bad thing about this bowl season, I didn't like the playoff games on New Year's Eve. That was bad.
Yeah.
They drew drastically worse ratings.
Yeah, because nobody was watching it.
Because no one was home to watch
People
it.
were doing other things.
Either
They were
getting
in New
out of
York.
work or going to a New Year's Eve party.
Exactly.
You know, it was just I didn't like that setup from the beginning.
And I think they've learned. I think they'll learn that and they'll respond with that next year. Hell, it might not even be on New Year's at all.
It
next
should
year.
no. It should be New Year's Day. Is
New
fine.
Year's Day drew a lot of ratings.
No
I
one-
watched both of them.
It was higher rated than the Super Bowl. No one
Yeah.
leaves the house
Oh,
on
yeah.
New Year's Day.
Oh yeah,
So-
I didn't even watch the bowl games on New Year's Eve. I had to watch the highlights last night because
Right.
I still hadn't had time to watch it. I didn't watch it on New Year's Eve.
No, I did. I made a point of watching them, but you know, I mean, it
I
wasn't.
tried to. I wasn't home.
It wasn't a good setting. I didn't like it, and the atmosphere at the stadiums were not great.
No.
You could hear a pin drop in Dallas, and the Alabama.
Well, in the defense, it was also 38-0.
Yeah, but I mean, when it was 0-0 in the first quarter, there
Okay.
felt like there was no intensity. In the
Again,
building.
I didn't watch
and
it.
the Orange Bowl. I mean, for as much of it was a sellout, and that you could clearly tell which side both teams were sitting on. I thought it was just an awful atmosphere. The atmosphere for Iowa Stanford, which was awful, was a terrible game, was far better. I couldn't stand the
Because
entire
Iowa
setup.
also had something to play for the first time in 1,001 yeyears.
Their fans were awesome.
Their fans were great this year.
Yeah.
And you go back to the Big Ten Championship, they were great there too. It just wasn't
Yeah.
their night.
Indianapolis, yeah, it was a great setting.
It was a great setting. But again, just the whole overall season of the bowl games were awful this year. You can only hope for it to be a classic national championship next week.
Better be Texas versus USC from 2005, or this is going to be a dud.
This is going to be a big hit on college football, and it's going to be something they got to respond with next year.
Yeah, next
so.
year. Yeah, I mean, listen, they can't control the quality of the play.
No, they
but
can't.
It's just
You
bad.
can't control a 24-21 double overtime national championship.
Bad for business.
If Alabama wins 38-10, they're going to win 38-10, and they don't really care what anybody thinks.
No, it's just bad for the idea,
Right.
for the brand and the idea of.
No,
the,
you're
of the
absolutely
playoff
right on
system,
that one.
so, yeah.
But I expect a great game out of both these teams. Clemson's got something to play for. Alabama, they still have something to prove. Could very well be Nick Saban's last game in Alabama. I
He's
don't
not
think it
leaving
will
anywhere.
be. I don't think it will be. But you know what? With all these reports out there, who knows who's telling the truth and who's not?
I want to see Clemson win. And I'm not
I do
trying to
too.
be biased or anti or anything here. I would like to see Clemson win. I think it'd be a great story. I'm not so sure they will. Alabama, these type of games, they have an answer for just about everything. Now, they do have an issue with quarterbacks that can scramble and extend the play, and maybe that's where Deshaun Watson comes in on the Clemson side of things. I'm not so confident this is going to be such a great
Watson
game.
proved that he can rush.
Oh,
if he has
Watson's
room.
fantastic. Watson's a fantastic
Also,
fantastic
Oklahoma's
player.
secondary didn't look great either.
No, Oklahoma is a typical Big 12 team, all offense and not much defense.
Exactly. And he used that to his advantage. He rushed.
No.
He almost rushed for more yards than passing.
I had Clemson in that game by 20, so I'm not really surprised. It ended up going exactly the way I thought it would, really, to be honest.
It was 20, actually.
Yeah, it was the other ones that I had Michigan State, and that I got completely wrong. I had Michigan State in a very close one, and I had that.
Well, a lot of people bet
off.
A lot of people bet Alabama would beat Ohio State last year, and well, look how that happened. And so a lot of people thought, oh, Alabama can't win the semifinal. They won't win under Nick Saban. Well, yeah, they showed you, didn't they?
Yeah, they always do.
They always do. So with that, Clemson, Alabama, number 1 versus number 2 for the national championship. You didn't even need the playoff. It's number
Could've
1
gone back
versus
to the BCS.
Yep, it's number 1 versus number 2 all over again. So we have that matchup. But again, to me, even though Clemson is the number 1, when you're playing for a national championship for the first time in 30-plus years, really, yes, you're the number 1, but you still feel like the underdog. Because Alabama's going for, 4 in their last 7?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yes.
So I expect it to be a great matchup. Where is it even being played? I don't even know. Is it
It is in Arizona where the Cardinals play.
Arizona, okay. Yeah, because I never really even bothered to look there because it was in AT&T last year. So I figured it's not going to be in Houston. It's not going to be in San Francisco. So I figured, what's the next best bet? So we'll take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we should get into more Black Monday news, I think, because we haven't really discussed the Browns, the 49ers, none of that. So we'll get into that. Our picks at 3:30. We should be able to tie in some NHL, NBA. We might not. We might go football all 3 hours. I really don't think you care, do you?
No, I'm not against doing it. I just don't know if we're going to be able to fit that into our time slot. But
No,
we'll see.
I get it.
We'll try.
We'll figure it all out here. This is radio.
Too much to talk about in too little time, unfortunately.
We always change things. We're like group therapy.
Wow.
No, I'm just joking around. So 14 minutes past the 3 o'clock hour. You are tuned into SMC Sports. Now it's 15 minutes on 90.3 FM, 973-655-4256. It's the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty for the final 45 minutes. Back after this. And 20 minutes past the 3 o'clock hour, you're tuned into SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty in the studio. So we just discussed the college football playoff. We're going to get into a little bit of Black Monday right now because there were a lot that we talked about, but some we didn't talk about. So, for example, Tom Coughlin, gone. Chuck Pagano, I don't think we heard from yet, pending. So we'll get into a few things that happened, especially last night, because a lot was interesting. First off, we'll start with Chip Kelly, fried for Week 17, done. There's not really much to go into that. We knew he was going to do this to the Eagles. I even said it in January. From the moment he traded LaShawn McCoy, I said these will be the pending moves that gets him fired. Sure enough, 9 months later, he didn't even make it to the last game of the season. Ownership was so fed up. So Chip Kelly's gone. 49ers are showing interest. Tom Sula is out in San Francisco.
I thought that was... I kind of felt bad for Thomas Sula only because...
I didn't think it was the right move.
I thought he... Well,
I
thought it was the right move. I just thought he was set up to fail.
That's why I'm saying I don't think it was the right move. I think he was set up to fail. I think maybe
Should
another
never
year.
made him the head coach in the first place.
I think maybe either another year, you shouldn't have hired him at all, because when you have a team in San Francisco where half your defense retired, another quarter of it got arrested, and the other half of it got hurt.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? How are you gonna win with that?
Yeah, no, I didn't like
that was the most
that hire from the beginning. Yeah. He didn't inspire much confidence as a head coach. He didn't make you think that they had any plan. And their season was ruined by a number of different factors. So
San Francisco's prediction was the most accurate one I got right. I said San Francisco will finish in last place.
Well done.
Well done. I also said Dallas will win the division. I said the Jets would be 8-8. Keep in mind, I'm being very sarcastic here. Like, I got all these wrong. I said, I did say nope. I said Kansas City won the division. Damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Well, they almost did.
You should stop making predictions.
But that's why the show's so fun.
I know. It's the beauty of being wrong that makes it great.
Browns started it last night. They fired Ray Farmer.
Yeah, that's
GM,
official.
And Mike Payton is now gone as well.
Payton's gone.
Payton's gone.
Johnny Manziel will be joining them on the unemployment line.
Very, very soon, we would
Showing
expect.
up to practice intoxicated is not the way to go about it. At least that's alleged in the reports, and I am not surprised remotely.
You see, I don't even understand what he's trying to do. If this is his way of trying to get out of Cleveland.
I don't buy that. This is just an irresponsible individual. This is someone who has just got a problem.
I know, but
issue.
I can't fathom the fact that he's just doing this because he's a screw-up. I really believe...
But why not? I mean, Ryan Leaf failed every drug test and stole from people and committed about 4 felonies just because he's messed up.
It just comes down to
Tom
who could be
Marinovich.
this stupid. That's really it.
No, I know.
But whatever. So they're all three of them will be on the unemployment line soon. Saints want a second-round draft pick for head coach Sean Payton.
Not sure if they'll get that or not.
Open jobs currently Cleveland, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Miami. Recently, the Giants. On the ice, we got Pagano. Coughlin, I wrote down last night, he's gone. Jim Caldwell in Detroit. Malarkey, well, he's the interim anyway in Tennessee, so...
I think Caldwell should stick around.
I think he should, too.
The Lions are a disappointing team. One of the more disappointing
though.
teams of the year, but they kind of got it together. In fairness to them, they had a really tough first 3 games at San Diego before they lost everyone, and then at the Vikings and home for Denver. So a difficult stretch for them to open the season, and so they find themselves on the outside looking in, and they put together a nice run. They really, they got it going there middle of the season into the late stretch, but they didn't get it done. It's unfortunate, but I think Caldwell should stick around. I don't think the answer there is to just get rid of him.
I agree. And just quick hockey news. Islanders announced Johnny Boychuk will miss 4 to 6 weeks due to upper body injury.
Ooh,
Bad spell
a big injury
for the Islanders. And just real quick, I looked at the standings last night, just go into it a little bit. Rangers fall into third.
Don't,
what is that?
Please, just let's not even go there.
I just wanted to throw that in there for a little bit. Also, Mike Shanahan
They're
and
a disaster.
Dan Campbell will have a shot to win his job back as Dolphins head coach. Mike Shanahan will also interview.
Mike Shanahan and John Gruden are interested in the Indianapolis job, but
Yep.
I'm not sure if they're going to get if they're going to
Reports about Nick Saban, they were also shut down very quickly too, twice by him actually.
Yeah.
So that's really about all there really is to it. Again, Tennessee job is open. Chip Kelly is very interested in San Francisco. You said there were 2 unnamed teams that shot him down.
So they were not impressed with him at all. And
After the 3 seasons in Philly, I don't blame him.
Yeah.
And he'll never get creative control again. So,
No.
He's done with that. He'll only be a head coach from this point on because you know what? That just goes to show, and a lot of teams it works. Some teams it works. Philadelphia it didn't. You gave this guy control. He traded half the team away.
He's a dictator.
He had the shot to sign Jeremy Maclin back, refused to. Jeremy Maclin had a season to remember in Kansas City. And you signed DeMarco Murray, which some people think they did it just so Dallas wouldn't have him because they had the money. He had the worst season of his career. He may not come back under a new head coach, which in my opinion, it may be the best option to actually bring DeMarco Murray back if there's a new head coach so we can learn another system.
Yeah, I don't think he's long for them.
If Chip had stayed, DeMarco Murray would definitely be out the door.
I think he might get another year, but if this doesn't work out again,
yeah. And
I think the bigger issue is the personality. I am more concerned about that than anything.
They also got to go O-line in the draft because their O-line was really pitiful this year for Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And that's something Chip Kelly did not do last year. You get Aguilar in the first round; it's a nice pick, but it's not. It wasn't what they needed.
He's way in over his head. He's a college coach.
You could have got away with.
You
could have got, and Aguilar only played in 4 games this year. So what did it matter?
I don't know what he played in, but he wasn't very good.
He was
when
not
he was
good
on the field. So that's all that matters, to be honest.
That's all I know. He was not good. Sean Payton's fate will be decided today. We still have not heard anything yet. Actually, Rappaport just tweeted something. Let's see what he said. Sean Payton won't talk today. Actually. Scheduled to talk to the media at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. Okay, it's a media. So Sean Payton will talk to the media 1 o'clock on Wednesday. So really that's all about it. So maybe we'll find out more on Wednesday about Sean Payton, unless they're going to announce something tonight. I don't know. But either way, we'll hear from Sean Payton Wednesday at 1. So that should be very interesting. And like we said before, Sean Payton is eyeing the Giants situation very closely. Tom Coughlin is out as head coach. Jerry Reese, from many reports, is safe, which, again, me and Nick are still flabbergasted about. As non-New York football fans, flabbergasted, and we feel for the Giants fans out there. Because and again, I'm only saying this on paper, not to just make predictions. They are setting up for a horrific season next year.
Yeah, this is the first bad move of a very big offseason.
The offseason's only been about 22 hours long, too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not setting anything set in stone, but on paper, this looks bad for the Giants, big time. So with that, and again, you know what's funny? A lot of this happened last night that I wrote down. Half this page was last night. So that's actually very interesting. Chuck Pagano is expected to be let go. Once again, we have not heard anything yet. When we do, we will break it on the show. First to break it here on WMSC Sports.
I don't want him to go, personally.
Well, nobody wants him to go.
Think about it. I don't think he should have to go.
Think about it. This guy beat cancer. Who wants him to go?
He's a great guy.
He is a great guy, but at the end of the day, and I hate to say it this way, it's what have you done for me lately? Exactly.
I think that's unfair, though.
Yeah, I get it.
The roster is atrocious. I mean, they have tons of offensive skill, but they don't have anything on defense. He loses his best player for the whole year, pretty much, outside of a handful of games. Luck was just beaten to death. He couldn't play. Every
time Luck came back in, he got put back on IR.
Because he was more injured than they let everyone know.
Yeah.
He was not allowed to coach the team. Then who?
That could be on Luck too.
No, it's not on Luck. That's on general manager Ryan Grigson, who files the injury report and did this whole thing the wrong way. So I have a very big issue with the idea of keeping Grigson and letting go of Pagano. I think it's a 100% wrong move in Indianapolis. So we'll see going forward.
I can see what you're saying. We'll take a quick break here. Coming up, we will have our NFL wild card weekend picks
The wild card weekend.
The wild card picks. Coming up at 3:30, we will also get into more preview for the wild card matchups. We'll be breaking Black Monday news as it happens. All here on SMC Sports, right here on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty. Back after this. And 32 minutes past the 3 o'clock hour, you are tuned into SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty here in the WMSC studios, and it is time for our NFL Wild Card Weekend picks. So, and also we just got breaking news from the NFL. Mike Smith will interview for the Dolphins head coaching job.
That I don't understand either.
There's a lot of things we don't understand in the last 2 hours we've been here, but that's what radio's for, isn't it?
Yep.
So we will start off with the Saturday games. We will have the Kansas City Chiefs, and I like to go more in depth on these picks. Now there's only 4 of them. Kansas City Chiefs at the Houston Texans will kick off the 2016 NFL playoff season. Nick, who do you got in Houston?
I like Kansas City. They are dangerous right now coming into this postseason. They're playing really well. They've won 10 straight from 1-5 to 11-5. An awesome season, an awesome comeback, and they find themselves now in a great spot. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't catch a break to win the division at the end of the year with Denver winning those last 2 games of the season. But they've certainly got the job done, and here they are as the 5 seed. I really like this team right now. I've never been a big believer in Alex Smith and Andy Reid, frankly, but after what I've seen this year, I really like what they've done, and frankly I trust that they can get this done and at least win this playoff game and maybe a couple more here on the way to potentially Super Bowl 50. So. For Kansas City, they got to play good defense like they have all year. Keep running the ball the way they have the last few weeks, even without Jamal Charles. The receiving core has been solid. Houston's defense is good. We know that. And we know Houston's defense probably keep the Texans close in this game. But in the end, I think the Chiefs pull away. And since we're going in depth, we want scores. How about 31-17 Kansas City in Houston?
Okay. I will take the Chiefs as well. I mean, you're right. Houston's got a good defense, but Kansas City has been, besides the Jets, and the Jets aren't even in the playoffs now, the hottest team in the AFC.
Hands down.
New England has shown they are beatable. Cincinnati and Denver have QB situations. Houston is interchanging with 3 quarterbacks, so who really knows what's going on there? Kansas City, to me, you said it perfectly. Alex Smith, best season of his career. Jeremy Maclin was the pickup of the year for Kansas City. The defense has come on strong. I expect it to be, closer. It is playoffs, so you never know with these teams. With Houston and Kansas City, they haven't had much playoff success, in the last, how long we've been alive, whatever, as I try to get words out here.
Yeah.
But if we are going in depth, I will take, I'm going to say Kansas City 28, Houston 14.
Okay.
Next one, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals Saturday night. Actually, I'm going to write these down, too.
The big old backyard brawl
Who do
in
you got,
Cincinnati.
Nick?
This is going to be a physical ball game. You've got Cincinnati and A.J. McCarron. I like the way McCarron's play, as I said earlier in the show. I think he's done a nice job. He manages the game. He keeps you close, doesn't let you get blown out or anything. But Pittsburgh has always handled the Bengals well, really, no matter who is playing for the Bengals and coaching the Bengals, for that matter, and especially under Marvin Lewis. The Steelers have a great track record against them. Pittsburgh's so experienced, so much talent on both sides of the ball right now, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. I have a hard time picking against them in this matchup, so I will take the Steelers to go into Queen City of Cincinnati and defeat the Bengals by a final score of 34-21.
Okay. I will take the Steelers as well. They earned their spot in this game. They had to get everything right to get in. They did. Again, Cincinnati, a great year, but we've seen this story before. First game, they don't even come out of the box, not even close, blah, 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 blah. We've all heard about it already. And now you don't have your starting quarterback. Yes, A.J. McCarron has looked good. I will give him that. He has played in bigger situations, in more hostile crowds before.
Well, they're home anyway, so this
yes,
isn't hostile
This
yet.
is home, but this is the NFL playoffs.
Yes.
I will not trust A.J. McCarron in this matchup, despite what you think. And you know what, A.J. McCarron? I hope the kid proves me wrong. I do. But I do not trust A.J. McCarron in this game. Big Ben has been playing great. Antonio Brown has been their biggest weapon all year. I think he will be Saturday. The defense has stepped up in a big way, which I will believe will take A.J. McCarron and crack him under the pressure. I'm taking Pittsburgh 21-7.
21-7. Okay.
And now Seattle at Minnesota. I wrote that wrong.
Seattle
at Minnesota. Nick, who you got?
Minnesota's put together a great run, and really it's been a great season for Mike Zimmer and company to win this NFC North. You know, the Packers have struggled here in the recent weeks, and it's a great story for Teddy Bridgewater and Adrian Peterson to have this kind of redemption season to get back in the fold of the league and to win this division with an 11-5 mark. So props to them. However, I don't really like this matchup for them. I think Seattle and Minnesota really play a similar style, but Seattle has more talent. They're probably just the better team. We saw these two play each other a few weeks ago in Minnesota, and I'm going to go with a similar result. I know the final there I want to say was 38-7. I'll say 34-14.
Okay.
Seattle, that is. Excuse me.
Taking Minnesota, too. You know, they earned the right to be called... I'm sorry, not Minnesota, Seattle. Why am I saying that? Minnesota, you know, give them all the credit in the world. They deserve to be the NFC North champions with the season that they've had. The game they had last night, I watched the whole thing, was incredible. Bridgewater, Peterson both had great seasons. Defense stepped up with guys like Trey Waynes, Everson Griffin. Seattle, however, has turned everything around, had an unbelievable...
The experience factor is the scary part.
Unbelievable second half. The experience, you're right, is scary. The defense looks almost the same as last year and the year before. Like, that is how much that this team has stepped up.
The biggest difference maker is they're getting Lynch back.
Yep, and they get Lynch back.
The X factor there.
And I wrote this down too. Russell Wilson has proved he can play without a running game. He's proved that he's a mobile quarterback.
Against the Ravens and the Browns, sure.
Well, we'll see how it is against Minnesota. He's proven that he can throw to his receivers outside the pocket, in the pocket. He's a mobile quarterback. He proved that. You lose Bowles, you lose Lynch. You don't have a running game. He proved he can win without it. I expect a similar situation in Minnesota a couple weeks ago to happen on Sunday. I'm taking Seattle 27-10. And finally, we have, I think it's the closest matchup of the weekend, Green Bay at Washington.
The Redskins have put together a nice year. I mean, I thought they would go 3-13. I know a lot of people had them in the bottom of the NFC East.
2-14 was my prediction.
Kirk Cousins has done a really nice job. You know, as we've said, Sean, many times, you know, we've made a joke about it, but we like it.
We like it.
We like the way he's played. He's
been
really solid. Their receiving core has gotten better and better. How about Jamison Crowder, rookie out of Duke? Jordan Reed is emerging as this weapon at tight end. He's been awesome. Garcon and Jackson have had good seasons, especially after Jackson got healthy. Started to run the ball a little bit better, too, as a team. So I really like the way the Redskins are playing. Coming into the playoffs, they're at 9-7. I'm not saying that they're going to make a ton of noise and go on to win the whole thing, but I really do think that the Redskins will beat the Packers Sunday afternoon in Washington. They're so much better at FedEx Field. The crowd is hostile. The Packers' offense is just not clicking right now. Aaron Rodgers has all kinds of problems. They don't run the ball well. So basically, Washington's going to get a bunch of free rushes at Aaron Rodgers. I don't think this is going to be that close, really, to be honest with you. I have Washington 24-10.
I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I'm taking Washington in what I would call an upset because, again, you know, Washington, you know, they won one of the worst divisions in football next to the AFC South. But you know what? Give Washington credit. They played extremely hot in December. They won 4 in a row. They won 4 of their last 5 games. Last 4, obviously, 4-game winning streak. And you've got Green Bay, a team that started 6-0, went on a bye, came back and lost 6 of their last 9. Aaron Rodgers has struggled. The defense is banged up. They're playing with guys hurt. Washington is a team that is very unpredictable, which also means inconsistent too, but have surprised a lot of people. The Redskins have the advantage. They're 7-1 at home. That's where they're playing. Winners are their last 4. And the Redskins, who I believe, in some cases, may be the hottest team in the NFC. At least in December, of course, what I'm saying. I'm going to take Washington very close. I'm going to say 16-13. A very low-scoring game.
Wow. I can see that, though, because Green Bay is just sputtering on offense.
Yep.
So I like that.
I like that, too, because I like that.
You like that.
I do like that. So that'll conclude our picks. That was quick.
Yeah, well, this is a lot different now.
This is a lot different. So, just to go off, we all have the same picks, really.
Yes.
I have Washington, Seattle, I have Pittsburgh, and I have Kansas City. I expect them all to move on 3 of the 4 wildcard teams I expect to get a win this week, which again, and even going back, not even so on the Jets, but for Pittsburgh and Kansas City, these are good matchups for these teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good matchups.
Agreed.
And for Minnesota, yeah, you won the division, but I'm sorry, and obviously you weren't going to do this. Your best bet was to lay down last night. Your best bet was to lay down.
The Chargers have made a move there, firing Frank Reich, offensive coordinator.
Okay.
So McCoy is staying, as we already said
But
before.
the staff looks like they're leaving.
Staff is probably on its way out. Chuck Pagano's brother, actually sounds like he's on his way out. So Reich's gone. He was interviewed for the Jets and Bills jobs both last year.
Okay.
And remember, he was the Bills quarterback in the 90s. He won
Yep.
the AFC Championship game in comeback fashion. I'm sorry, the AFC Divisional Round game against the Houston Oilers. So, who knows? I'm sure he'll be picked up on his staff again pretty quickly. He was very sought after. But that's another move on Black Monday here as the pink slips keep coming.
Well, we'll talk Black Monday when we come back from the break. We'll touch a little bit on NHL and NBA as we wrap up the show. We have about 15 minutes. We could do a little bit of quick news on there as we wrap up the first SMC Sports of the winter semester. There's only about 3 editions of it. And then we will find out when SMC Sports will be back on in the spring. So at least for the next couple weeks, Mondays 1 to 4, right here on 90.3 FM. We'll take a quick break. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty, 43 minutes past the hour. Back after this. All right, 49 minutes past the 3 o'clock hour. You're tuned in to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty. So we talked about 2 hours and 50 minutes of NFL. So we'll save the last 10 minutes for a little bit of NBA and NHL news. We'll add that in. We didn't get that much to discuss about, but I did look up some stuff last night. Just going off locally here on the Knicks, last night they beat Atlanta 111-97. They play Atlanta again tomorrow. The Knicks sit at 16-19, 5 back at Toronto for first place. Toronto, the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference if the season would end today.
For first?
5 back for first.
Really?
Yep. Toronto, though, the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. But the Knicks continue to struggle on the road. December, they lost 7 of 9 road games. They go on the road for 3 straight, which start at Atlanta and at Miami, which they're both tied for first in the Southeast. And then they go to San Antonio, who besides Golden State is owning the Western Conference. So with the Knicks' road struggles, they're not going to get any easier from here, right?
No, it's not going to get much easier. Listen, I don't think we should all get caught up in this whole, they need to make the playoffs. I think this year is about just taking a step forward right now and just, building on this team. And Kristaps Porzingis is having a good year. Excuse me there, I'm sorry. But they're doing a nice job with him. Their bench units coming together. They're doing a really nice job defensively, too, starting to compete better on that end of the floor. So I think overall this is a step in the right direction thus far.
Yeah, I would agree. And, looking at the Nets also.
The Nets make them look like NBA champions.
Oh,
so
my
it's all
God.
right.
The Nets suck. But they've lost 7 of their last 10. They're 10-23. They look like the Knicks of last year. The team is horrific on the road. They're 4-13. Yeah, they beat Boston on Saturday thanks to a double-double by Brook Lopez and Thaddeus Young. They played Boston on Monday at home, which kind of helps them because they have a somewhat more decent home record, but they're not good on the road either. And the team is bad. They get destroyed in the Eastern Conference. You don't even want to know the results of the Western Conference. They're down and out. They're not getting up. Nick, just, from a season like last year to barely get into the playoffs, for the help that they had to get into the playoffs, this is not really a year I was expecting for them.
Yeah, no, I didn't think that this would be the year. I mean, as a Knicks fan, I'm excited. I think this is a solid move. And I like Aaron Aflalo a lot, and Lance Thomas did a nice job off the bench. Kristaps Porzingis, as the rap song would say. But like I said, Sean, I don't think Knicks fans should be all caught up in how the team's doing standings wise. Focus should be on winning, just getting better. And if they win games, great. 16-19 is a fine start right now.
Oh, yeah, it's only January. Playoffs aren't for another 4 months. They have time.
Not to break us from our subject matter here, and we do not have anything official, and they have not said that they are going to hire him or
You're going
anything.
to say it anyway, aren't you?
No, I'm not saying anything. I didn't say that they are hiring him because I have no sources to corroborate this. But what I do have here, I have seen a number of tweets from actual sources, people that cover the Eagles, people that have been close to Chip Kelly. The Giants are interested in Chip Kelly.
So that would, if this does happen, and if it happens today, that would be 2 horrible starts to your offseason, and the offseason isn't even 24 hours old yet.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to get everyone all caught up in this, and they haven't had an
nothing's
interview.
Official yet.
No, there's not even an interview or anything scheduled. There's a lot of preliminary reports from people around the league that they are interested in some interviews and just sitting down and not even an interview, but at least they're interested in talking to him and seeing if they're willing to make a deal or discuss replacing Tom Coughlin with him. So
yeah,
this is if you're wondering why the end of the show is a little hectic here,
it's because it's Black Monday. That's why.
Yeah, I don't think it's likely that it happens, and I'm not saying that it is a real thing. That it could lead to this, but there are a couple preliminary reports from some people around the league that the Giants have some interest in potentially bringing in the former head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, who was relieved of his head coaching duties.
Yeah, I'm looking at some tweets now. It's literally mixed. Like Chip rumored to be Giants' favorite. Chip not likely to sign with Giants.
Yeah,
so we don't know what's going on yet.
It's just the rumor mill, and we're not trying to. We don't want to stir up any fanaticism here and get everyone all going. But there are some early preliminary word here that the Giants might be interested. And maybe this is just part of just, opening every door and just checking every option. But I wouldn't be in favor of that.
No,
hire.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
That would if this does happen and it happens soon, let's say like in the next 7 days, that'll be our opening topic on Monday of how bad the decision was. Because, you know what? No disrespect to Chip Kelly as a person. But the 3 seasons in Philadelphia, do I have to go any further than that?
No.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, you got the 1 division championship. Big deal. Okay, again, the division fell apart that year. Then you had the 2 years where
won
you
a bunch of games with Andy Reid's team and then blew it up and tried to do it his own way, and it didn't work.
Turn the whole team upside down. You turned it into the Oregon Eagles, and it backfired on you.
Oregon Ducks.
To the point where ownership was so fed up, you didn't even coach the last game of the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't go down this road if I was the Giants.
I wouldn't either. So. And if Jerry Reese has any brain cells left, he would not go down this road either.
And as we are closing our show here, we still haven't heard anything on Chuck Pagano.
We have not, actually. We haven't heard on Chuck Pagano. We haven't heard on news on San Francisco. We haven't heard really anything.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to see many hires here today. This is for the first day.
I'm shocked that when you brought that up off air, I was like, that quick?
Yeah, listen, it's from a real source. It's not anything that's not being reported falsely here. It's just it's part of the rumor mill right now that the Giants are potentially interested in making a move here for him. So, it'll be interesting going forward. We'll see with these teams how they're going to view Chip Kelly. As we talked about earlier, we've already heard 2 teams kind of laughed off the idea of hiring him.
San Francisco looks interested though.
They might be. I don't know if Colin Kaepernick's going to be there long term, though, and I don't see any point in not. If you're bringing in a read option guy to not have a read option quarterback,
Nope.
I don't see it. I'm very surprised that San Francisco is keeping Trent Baalke as it is at general manager.
There were a lot of moves that happened today that we were very surprised about. Jerry Reese is one, Baalke's another.
Yeah,
a lot of moves we were shocked about today, all within 3 hours.
Yeah,
so
crazy 3 hours.
Very crazy. Probably the most crazy we've had on this show. And then, of course, you got Wild Card Weekend, which I'm very excited about. Despite, of course, and again, if you haven't heard the beginning of the show, we open up with the Jets, and
we never heard from Craig Gorbanoff.
Their misfortunes.
Craig, if you're out there, hopefully, please be okay.
Yeah, be okay, Craig. We understand your pain.
We miss you, and we were hoping to hear from you. It's no problem. It's no problem.
Craig was probably busy or sleeping it off, and I completely understand that.
Yeah, it's rough. It's a rough way to lose your season.
It's a rough day for Jets fans, but
yes.
When you look at a 10-6 record though for the Jets, I can see it. I wouldn't say the season was a failure. I would say the ending was a failure.
Disappointing.
It's a disappointing season.
I don't think it's a failure when you thought you were going 7-9 and you weren't going to make the playoffs.
I would call it a disappointing season, not a failure of a season.
It's a disappointing ending, though. The season's a total success in my eyes.
Well, to me, if you don't make
4-12.
Well, to me, you're right. But to me, if you don't make the playoffs, it's a disappointment.
is
That, to me.
disappointment. Yeah, but you're 4-12. I mean, the season's a
Listen, I know my Cowboys are 4-12. You don't have to
I
throw
didn't say
numbers
you.
in there.
I said they were 4-12.
Oh, they were 4-12. Okay,
and now they're
that's
10-6.
That's
a transformation.
Don't get me wrong. That's why I don't think it's a failure.
No, yeah.
I think it's
a disappointing ending to something that was done so it was going really well.
It is definitely a step up for the Jets organization. Now they have free agents now that they have to deal with, but
it's Wilkerson, Ivory,
but you know what? McCagnon's a smart man,
and Powell. They could draft a running back. I've been hearing some things about that maybe Ezekiel Elliott is their guy in the mid to late first round. I think they're picking just after 20, maybe 21 or 22.
Something like that.
Is the Jets pick?
No, it's not that late because they missed the playoffs.
No, I think it might be 20. I know the Colts are 18 and the Colts went 8-8.
The Cowboys are 4 and I'm loving life.
Yeah, well they're gonna trade that pick and that's probably the best move for them.
Yeah, probably.
But, we'll see as we go here into the offseason, but the Jets will have some options and some player personnel decisions to have to make going forward.
And don't get me wrong, you know what? McCagnon is a smart man. You saw it in the draft. You saw it in the offseason. He drafted a guy that he didn't need. He ended up needing him anyway.
Yes, he did.
So, smart on his part. He signed the guys he needed to sign. The Cromartie-Revis signings really didn't turn out as well as he thought he would. Revis had a good season. Cromartie not so much. But he signed the guys he needed to sign. He got him a 500 season, which is what everybody wanted to begin with. That was the first goal. Now, it's a huge disappointment to be that close, have it all in your hands, and just flush it all down the toilet, really. There's nothing else to be said there. But a 10-6 season, I don't consider that a failure. It's a disappointment they didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Especially with them having it right there. All they had to do was win. Or Pittsburgh to lose. But, with the whole Johnny Manziel crap in Cleveland, we all know Pittsburgh was going to walk over them. But it's a disappointment that they didn't make the playoffs. But when you call it a failure of a season, I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
No, it's not
I think
a failure.
it was a step in the right direction for the Jets.
Not at all.
And who knows, you rebuild the team a little bit more. I'm sorry, New England's fading here. New England's fading. I understand they're not healthy.
Listen, they're like the San Antonio Spurs. Every time you're ready to say that it's done and over with and they're going to come crashing down, you never bet against them, and I'm sorry. As long as Tom Brady's there, they win this division. He's better than Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That's a given.
And Fitzpatrick's very good. He's had a great year, but there's always going to be something
the other
missing.
obvious. The wall is white.
Well,
that's not obvious to them, actually. Maybe they thought it was red. Anyway, all right, fine. But no, I get what you're saying. But what I'm saying is, this Jets team could very well compete for a division down the line.
The Jets have to keep building.
Absolutely.
Don't count on anyone coming back to the pack. Keep building up the team. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
They have some more work to do in the offseason, and I believe they can get it done.
Absolutely. So we at the top of the 4 o'clock hour here on 90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. We will end things there. Our first show of the winter semester. Nick, thank you so much for joining me, as always. Of course. It was a great show. A lot of breaking news. We're still waiting on some breaking news to see if that Chip Kelly rumors are true. Chuck Pagano, we're not sure about yet. Sean Payton, we will hear about Wednesday. But as far as what we do know, Coughlin is out. Reese is in. We don't know why. The world is a crazy place. We have Wild Card Weekend this weekend. We're all excited. We're that much closer to Super Bowl 50, which very excited to see Super Bowl 50. Coldplay's playing halftime.
I want a Journey.
Well, Journey still might be there. They're trying to do a really big thing for this, and Journey's in the area, right?
Yeah, I know.
They're in the San
Francisco
area.
Yeah, I know.
What they're trying to do a huge thing. Journey might still be there.
Yeah, the problem is not Steve Perry playing with them; it's them playing with Steve Perry.
Yes.
So it's going to be hard. It's easier said than done. I don't dislike Coldplay, but Coldplay has about 5 songs, and then after that,
they might play those 5 songs.
Well, that's then wonderful. Then I guess that's what that. Then I guess I'll be happy. But after those 4 or 5 songs,
can we start the second?
I'm not a halftime show fan anyway. I'm going to be honest here, and I know we're a little over time, but I'm not a huge Super Bowl Sunday person in general. You can never just sit and watch the game, so I don't enjoy the Super Bowl process that much, the party thing. I'd rather be left alone to sit and watch the game and dissect it.
I love the party.
Well, then
it sucks.
Then you have fun and have people.
Well,
I have
to work the Super Bowl party at the Rec this year.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, I get paid to watch football now.
Perfect.
So perfect for me. So we'll conclude with that. When we come on next week, we will preview the national championship between Clemson and Alabama. We will have the wild card weekend results plus the divisional round picks and matchups. A lot more to get to. Hopefully, we'll have some more Black Monday news to break. Next week, we'll have more NHL, more NBA, more of it all. when SMC Sports comes back next week here on 90.3 FM, WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty signing off. We will see you next Monday at 1. Take care, guys.